and it was intense, but it was like a firework. It blew out pretty quick. But like a lot of my family members got death threats and stuff like that.
Wow, really?
Yeah, like it was serious.
Did you get threats?
Oh yeah. If you go back on my Facebook and look at some of the old profile pics, you'll see some of the comments still. I haven't cleaned it out. I don't care. It is what it is. But you'll see a lot of like people's comments.
That's part of this too, is why I felt this conversation would be so good, is because you didn't change your name. Mm-mm. You came into West Virginia, you're making videos under Michael Bowman. Yep. It's like,
I'm going to ride and die with you, man.
Sure. Welcome to Creepalachia. We have a fun episode. I think an important episode too for today's time, with another content creator that's been making waves in West Virginia, Michael Bowman. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. So we're gonna talk about your process, our difference in approach, and why I think both are very needed.
Yeah.
And in today's time, I'm kind of taking a hiatus from social media, so we're gonna get into that. Mm-hmm. My lack of confidence when outsiders come is gonna become relative, because we're gonna talk about some very mild Facebook drama that me and you cut off, thankfully, within about 10 minutes.
It's like a firework, man.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. Yeah. But let's go ahead and start with you.
All right.
First. So tell me about you and where you grew up.
Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan. Yep. I'm a Michigan boy through and through. Spent the first 18 years of my life there. And I think if we're going to like really dive into like kind of who I am, what I'm about, why I'm in West Virginia and things like that, like my childhood's pretty important, kind of what led me to, who I am today, obviously. So I had a pretty quintessential childhood, really good childhood. I know a lot of people, look back at their childhood with a lot of anger, resentment for whatever reason, maybe had a very difficult life, growing up, but I'm just blessed. I had great parents. I'm 4 of 5 in the family, so we had a big family. We were a quintessential middle-class household. My dad was a painter. We lived about an hour outside of the suburbs of Detroit, so he would drive every day about close to an hour every single day, one way, to paint, and it was just, it was a great time, man. We weren't rich by any stretch, like I said, quintessential middle class, but it was, there was just something about watching my parents struggle, like on a routine basis, like having to kind of like not have everything handed to me. There's something about that like ingrained some good principles in me early on. I always say I was the last generation of child paper boys. So really like from like 10 to 13 would just, those were the days where kids basically could wake up at 5 a.m, walk the streets and like deliver papers, and nobody was really worried about it. Like there wasn't any like fears or anything like this. It was just a different era, man. I know you're 40. You said you're 40.
Yep. Hit the big 40 last year.
So you know what it was like to grow up in the 90s. It was just a different era.
Yeah. Are you a Wolverine fan?
So it's an interesting question. I grew up as a Michigan State fan.
Okay, gotcha.
That being said, I didn't go to either college. I ended up moving out when I was 18. So just in the spirit of supporting Michigan or all things Michigan, I've started rooting for both teams. That being said, in the random chance Michigan State and Michigan were in the finals of something, I would choose Michigan State, just because that's who I grew up rooting for.
Heck yeah, big rivalry. Well, the reason I bring it up is because Coach Rod, who is finally back at WVU,
I saw that. Yep,
left and went to Michigan.
Yep,
in 2008, and it was a very traumatic time for us Mountaineer fans.
He didn't do much with us, so
No, he's where he should be now, and we forgive him. But man, that was a fun time. So it's essentially like a blue collar,
very
family.
blue collar, And I mean, listen, my parents weren't perfect. My mom was, in my opinion, as close to a perfect mom as you could get. She would say otherwise. She's pretty hard on herself. She's got the Bowman gene where we just are very hard on ourselves. My dad was a little stricter for sure. A little tougher on me, definitely didn't baby me in any capacity. I'm grateful for them, and I'm grateful they're still alive. There's been a fair share of, health problems throughout the years, but everybody's still kicking, and, I am blessed. But yeah, so I was like, my parents were, like I said, my dad was was a painter, you know what I mean? But we had like a religious wing to our family. All right. You know, I grew up very religious, and that like materialized in a lot of different wild stuff. You know, we were very Pentecostal growing up. So there's, you know, a fair amount of like kind of that speaking in tongues element and things of that nature.
Heck yeah.
But there was like some real grounded elements of like my childhood as it pertains to religion. And I'm not religious anymore, but like I do look back at like my parents, you know, my dad was homeless for over 10 years. Obviously before I came in the picture, you know what I mean?
Wow, really?
Yeah, he was. And, you know, he was homeless on the streets of Detroit. He had a very hard childhood, you know, and, you know, needless to say, my parents always had a heart for the homeless. So a lot of my childhood was spent in their homeless ministry. It wasn't a homeless shelter, but it was a homeless ministry, where, you know, we'd feed the homeless on holidays. We'd give a meal weekly. You know, he was a pastor, you know, so he'd give a message. I'd be back in the, you know, the sound booth working sound, you know, and it just like ingrained like this kind of, I'm really fortunate for that element of my childhood. It gave me like a, you know, we lived in a very safe suburban, you know, area. And I'm glad I got to see early on, like beyond my bubble. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad I got to see like the plight that so many people have to live with.
Sure.
You know, whether it was their fault, whether it wasn't, it's irrelevant. Like some people really have it hard in this world. But you know, it was always kind of my parents' thing. You know, I just kind of always tagged along for the ride or was forced to come along.
Sure.
When I was 16, I had a very religious experience, or so I felt, a religious experience, and started owning religion for myself, you know, and got involved in a youth group, Pentecostal youth group, and got very religious. You know, I owned it.
When you say religious experience, like, was there a feeling one certain day, or did something in particular happen in your life where you were like, that was different?
Yeah. So I went to youth group with one of my longtime friends, and, just had an experience, you know, an emotional experience.
Right.
You know, I'm an atheist today, so I look at things a little different. But at the time, I felt I had a religious experience where I felt the Lord, you know, I felt God in my body, you know, I felt overcome with emotion. I started crying. I started feeling all these feelings about the way that I'd been living, or the way that I felt was not a correct way of living. Mm-hmm. You know, I felt a lot of conviction over the things that I was watching, the things that I was consuming, and all of that. And yeah, I started, you know, I'm one of those people, man, I own everything I do. I go 100% at everything I do. And it's a blessing and a curse. And I started going full force with religion, you know, and skipping, you know, athletic events at my high school for youth group, like staying in when kids were like having fun and enjoying their, you know, last few years of high school. I was like praying, you know what I mean? All this stuff. And all I wanted to do was like go on and become this, you know, I didn't really see myself as like a traditional pastor. I felt like I could be probably more of an evangelical and like just travel the world spreading the gospel. Like,
right.
I really felt like this like passion in my bones to like spread the gospel, you know? And because we really read the Bible and we just did it, you know? I feel like a lot of Christianity, you know, is like very watered down today. And one thing I did respect about that season and that time and the people that I was with was we just read the Bible and we did it, you know? And you know, the Bible says some very direct things like lay hands on the sick and they'll recover, you know? And so we just took it at face value, went to the mall and prayed for people. Like, as crazy as that sounds, like being 17 years old, like at the mall, like stopping people in wheelchairs, like to pray for people. But that was just like it was just like normal for us.
Sure. I mean, that's pretty beautiful in a way, you know what I mean? And now, you know, people do it today and then they're like, holding the camera up and like, okay, watch it. I kind of feel iffy when we start doing that kind of stuff. Absolutely. But overall, I think religion is meant for kindness and good in the world. Yeah. And I think the human error is what twists it into.
Yeah, there was something pure about that.
Sure.
You know, whether I agree with it or not today, I look back at it and it was like a purity to it.
Yeah.
Of just like being a kid and just thinking these crazy things could happen and actually believing them, you know? So, long story short, my youth group was tied with this very famous revival, at least famous in our circle, called the Brownsville Revival. It happened in the late 90s, early 2000s in Brownsville, Florida. All right. My youth pastor had gone to that Brownsville school of ministry, and that was kind of his influence. And it was a very big revival that was like, had a focus on like repentance, holiness, like living a clean life and things like that. So that was like in my fabric, in my DNA. And, you know, Brownsville School of Ministry had closed down in the early 2000s. They had branched out in North Carolina as a school called Fire School of Ministry. All right. And,
that's a middle name. I like that.
It was called Fellowship for International Revival and Evangelism.
Oh, nice. So it's an acronym.
It was an acronym.
I like it.
Yep. So some of the leaders had gone to North Carolina, opened up this Fire School of Ministry as well as a church there. And it was an unaccredited Bible college. It was like it was a very small, like boutique group of people that like intentionally came there because we were on fire for God and we just wanted to see like the Lord's name like spread across this nation.
Sure.
So when I turned 18, I said, F it, I'm out. Like Michigan, literally that was 2009. Detroit had filed bankruptcy a year prior. It was a really bad economy. I was thinking about staying for a year. My brother-in-law told me like, listen, man, you need to get out of Michigan. Michigan's one of those places that can keep you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a small town place. It's a small town. You know how small towns are. They can suck you in.
Oh Lord, yes, son, I'm still here.
And then you can just be there forever. Which, listen,
right?
Small towns need people like that. I'm not saying it's all bad, but I think my brother-in-law just felt like this. I could do bigger things,
right?
And that bigger thing was like very subtle at first. Like moving to North Carolina, like wasn't that big of a deal. Like it was like a 9-hour drive. Like it's not like North Carolina is this like deep place. Like it's a cool place, but like it wasn't like this intense, change.
Oh, Charlotte gets all our people.
Yeah,
yeah. There's probably 20% of Charlotte is West Virginia, is my guess.
You know what else gets in North Carolina? A lot of West Virginians, for some reason, is Statesville.
Oh, really?
You know Statesville?
I thought that was in Virginia. Mm-mm. That's not Virginia. Okay.
The amount of people that tell me I lived in Statesville and came back, I'm like, oh, why
really?
Statesville? Yeah.
Mm.
But so I made the move. I was 18, graduated. And I wanted to move. I wanted to take this thing to the ends of the earth. All that zeal and passion that the younger people have.
Sure.
I get to North Carolina. Go to Bible college for a couple years, and a lot happens during that time. And we don't have to get all deep into the weeds and all of that. I find a woman that is also at the Bible college. We get married. But connecting the dots of like my story and all that is difficult even for me. But while I'm at that Bible college, like very early on, I'm at church, their Fire church, and there's these two brothers there called David and Jason Benham. And the Benham brothers have like created their own brand pretty substantially at this point. They're still very religious, but they weren't like that. They didn't like have this huge, well-known brand back then. Mm-hmm. They were just like men in the men in the church that owned a business. They owned a real estate business. And I started to really like this idea of being a marketplace like evangelist, or I don't remember the term I used for it, but it was like being this marketplace like preacher of the gospel, like creating a Christian organization, or an organization that like does a secular thing, but like has biblical framework.
Okay. Yeah.
That kind of thing. And, those guys were two men. They were extremely successful in the foreclosure business. Again, this was 2009, 2010. You know what I mean? If you were going to be successful in real estate at that time, you basically had to be in the foreclosure world.
Which that was after the big crash of 2008. Yep. So,
yep.
Okay.
And, we're talking houses that are today selling for $400,000, selling for $20,000 back in Charlotte. We're talking like a substantially different economy. And so I was like, I love these guys. They were like my model for like who I wanted to be when I grow up, so to speak. So that's like in my head. I end up getting a job at Target. That was like my first job when I got to North Carolina. About a month after North Carolina, I moved there broke. Like I had my car paid for, moved there with absolutely no money, like most people that are 18 years old. Got a job at Target, started as a cart pusher, like very simple stuff, nothing crazy. And like anything, I started getting passionate about it. Like, oh yeah, Target. Like everything, you know what I mean? I was just like full of it.
You can tell you have like an entrepreneur spirit.
Yeah.
It's something that you can't, like you're born with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I cared more about that place than the average Target employee, and that like rubbed some people the wrong way. Like I was very like over the top with things, and I'll admit it. Like I was, just like some people were just like, get away from me, bro. Like you're doing too much. And I get it. I was doing way too much, so I ended up getting into the electronics department. And so yeah, I get in the electronics department, and like, I don't know how to describe it other than like that place, like that little electronics department in Target, like was where I learned how to like sell. It's like where I learned how like customer service worked. It's like how I learned the X's and O's for like what good business looks like, you know?
Right.
And well, long story short, my entrepreneur flare starts flaring up. And when you can call this good or bad, whatever you want to call it, I call it just an entrepreneur that's just doing entrepreneur things, you know? And I get an idea one day. Keep in mind, I've like been for multiple years up until this point, I've been like buying and selling things like buying it on whatever, a garage sale, you know, wherever it might be, maybe buying something on Craigslist, selling it on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that with like a variety of things, and it started working its way up. You know, it got to a point where I was selling cars. You know what I'm saying? It was just flipping things.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, like there's like things on the shelf, like TVs and stuff that are like clearance items. Like, let me buy this, you know? And like I got a 10% discount. Let me use my discount. Then let me flip it. And like, so every day, like for a while, I was like walking out of the place with like a TV in my hand, some of this stuff, you know? And obviously there's like a conflict of interest there. You know what I mean? Like you can't necessarily be working somewhere and then like buying up all the merchandise. Like the merchandise is for the customers, not for the employees.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, one day I was in the break room. I saw these in the employee handbook. I saw these Dyson vacuum cleaner coupons, and it was like 40% off of a Dyson vacuum cleaner, which is like substantial money if you're talking a Dyson.
Oh yeah,
cleaner.
it's like $1,000. No, I don't know. Like it's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And up until this point, people kind of knew what I got going on, but they weren't really like, nobody was really saying anything. But like I took those. I was like, let me take them, like, and let me flip them. I put them on eBay. And then like shortly after that, somebody from corporate had come in and was basically like, we know what you're doing. Like you were one of 3 people. Like we flew in directly for you. Like,
oh wow, is it against policy or is it?
Yeah, so like all of that is like against policy.
Gotcha.
Like you can't use your employee discount to and resell stuff.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't always use my employee discount, but I did use my employee discount at times. You know, and you can't like take employee coupons and like resell them. Like it's against policy.
Gotcha.
And I get it. You know, you can't have that. So I got fired. It was my first job, and I got fired from my first job.
Oh, I've been fired. Listen, McDonald's, it was quite the time. So, but yeah, that makes sense. So, and to clarify, like it's against company policy. It's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
Just gets you, cost you your job.
Cost me my job. Can never work for Target again. I wish them nothing but the best.
Yeah.
So I was laying in my apartment with 4 roommates. This was my second year of college at this point. Still very religious. Still had the Brennan brothers in my head, you know, all this stuff going on. Unemployed, had no idea what I was going to do for a living. Had no debt, but I also was like paying for school and stuff. And I needed the money to pay for school. And somebody knocks on my door my roommate knocks on my door and is like, hey, I've been cleaning the offices for the Benhams, basically for somebody else. So there was a guy that had the position, and this guy that lived with me was helping that guy out.
Okay.
And that guy that was helping the guy out couldn't do it that weekend. He's like, do you want to help? And I said, yeah, like I would love to. Like the Benhams, again, we're still kind of like the type of people that I wanted to be when I grow up. So I end up cleaning their offices, you know, and I get $25 a night, and it was just like this. It was like this, like it felt like a perfect glove. Like it felt like this is my in. You know what I'm saying? Like I've wanted to be working in the real estate business with these men for years, or for a year, and like I got my in. And
it's a good story for later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys ended up seeing me and like really liking me.
Right.
I can't say it any other way. They really liked my passion. They liked my zeal. And they ended up just like getting rid of the middleman, the middle dude that was like having me work, which whatever. I'm sorry, buddy. You know, it sucks that like that dude got canned, but he was also like working another job and whatever. It
happens.
It happens. So I ended up working full time as a janitor for them. Like I said, $25 a day. And, you know, I'd be out there at 5 in the morning. They'd come in, you know, I'd have a chance to chat with them a little bit. And it like gave me this this like opportunity for them to like pour into me on a scale. Well, I walk into their office one day and I'm like, listen, I want to do something like more than this. You know what I'm saying? So he ends up giving me a position for $400 a week to take pictures of their foreclosures. And so basically, if just the simplest way for people to understand it is if a bank goes into foreclosure, if a property owner goes into foreclosure, the bank takes over the property. So the bank is now the owner again of that property. They need a list. If they want to get rid of that property, for the most part, there's exceptions. They can sell at auction and stuff like that. But if they want to sell it in the traditional way, they contact a real estate agent to sell it. Mm-hmm. And that was the Benham's like niche. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, all these like big foreclosure, all these big banks were like basically giving all of their assets to them to sell. Well, in order to get that business, you need to go on site every week, take pictures, submit a report, like show the condition of the property and things like that. Obviously, they didn't have the ability to do that for whatever 1,000 listings that they had. So they had people on staff to do that. It was like a basic entry level job of being a runner. You know what I mean? Is what they called it. So I'd go on site all throughout North Carolina, take pictures of these foreclosures, submit it to the person in the office. They would submit a report. But it was a very transformative time for me. I always say if you want to get here, like the mountaintop, if you want to climb Mount Everest, for example, you can't just show up on Mount Everest. You got to train.
Sure. Yeah.
You got to train in smaller mountains and work your way up to something. And a lot of people, I think want this goal, but they don't know, they can't build the skills to get there in between.
Instant gratification.
Yeah. So taking pictures of these foreclosures was like building an eye for me. It was like building an eye for what to look at in homes. It was building an eye for attention to detail, because the woman that was my direct supervisor was a very difficult person. She was good in hindsight, but she was hard to work for. She had very specific requirements. She was so it created this sense of attention to detail in me. It brought me all over North Carolina to see the market. I got to learn the geography of North Carolina. All of these little details that later on pay dividends were formed in that $400 a week job.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I walk into the office again and I say, listen, man, I want to keep going. I don't want to stop here. And he said, the only thing I got for you is you can become a real estate agent. All right. And I said, great, let's do it. So 2011, I go to take my real estate exam, or I go to take my real estate class. And I am not a naturally book smart person. Okay. It takes me a lot to get me to read a book. I do think I'm smart, but I think it's a very different type of smart than somebody that's valedictorian.
Street smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I am. I'm terrible at school.
You are?
Yeah. Awful. I've dropped out twice, and I've figured out quick that that's not for me. So yeah. I get it, but I think it's sometimes more valuable to be that way, because real life is often a lot different.
Do you feel like you can apply yourself to something though, even like school, and succeed if you want?
No,
you don't.
If I'm into it, but I can't take all the classes needed to get to that specific goal. I have to be into everything I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's why I could never do good at school.
Yep.
But
so, yeah, I found myself in real estate school, and it was tough, it was a 6-week course, very intense, and week 3, I felt like this isn't it for me. I'm going to give up. But for some reason or another, a light bulb clicked, and I don't know how to describe it. It just happened. And I just remember a light bulb clicked and I started getting it. I just really started getting real estate, and I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know how it happened, but I started getting it. Not and I ended up taking the course. I don't remember exactly. I think I failed the first time they let you retake, and I think I passed the second time or something like that. But I ended up getting my real estate license, and I ended up selling houses, in a very traditional sense. I still have my $400 an hour, 400 week running job. I actually at that time still had my janitor job, but I start selling houses. All right. So we're talking 2011, July 2011. And I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, nobody can just jump into real estate and just know what they're doing. but I like feel like I even more so don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just like a bull in a china shop, like getting contracts and stuff. And like these poor people that I originally sold to, like I really feel bad, but you know, they ended up getting great deals. So it ended up working out. But
right.
But like, I'm like, dang, these people really trusted me. Like I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't even have the money. My first house under contract was a HUD property, and they like require you to get original signatures and overnight it to them. And I didn't even have the money to overnight it to them. Like I had to like borrow it or figure out some way. But things start clicking, and I like try the traditional sense, you know, selling to first time home buyers and like walking through the process and all of that. And then I start selling to investors, and like that like becomes what I feel is my wheelhouse. There was just something about the lack of emotion that investors have towards a piece of real estate, and the just the X's and O's of buying an investment property that started appealing to me. You know, because I felt like, okay, you know, first time home buyers, for obvious reasons, they live there, they have attachment to it, they're going to have a different lens when they look through the home. And that's like, some people love that. Personally, that wasn't for me. You know, I like the investor approach, just kind of a hard and fast numbers perspective to real estate.
Sure.
So I end up getting a relatively decent amount of success selling to investors. I end up, you know, getting rid of my janitor job at this point, and I very shortly after that I ended up getting rid of my running job, and I go full time. You know, no stability, just all 100% commission. Excuse me. So that was a big risk. So long story short, I go a couple years doing this, going full time, helping a lot of investors and all of that. One day, you know, and let me pause right there.
Sure.
Before we get to kind of the one day.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. So one day a phone call comes into the real estate firm. All right. We would do what's called, what did they call it? Call time. Yeah. Where basically an agent would sit at the phones, the main lines, and take calls. And it could be a variety of phone calls, but for the most part, it was like, I want to buy or sell a home. So it was just our 3-hour slot to take calls. You know what I mean? And that was like a way to generate leads. You had to take a call time slot. Somebody else was on the call time slot. One of my direct managers was actually an agent as well, and he was on call time slot. A big hedge fund had contacted him, or contacted the firm, should I say, and basically said, I'm coming to town. I want to buy some real estate. I'm coming on whatever Thursday. Like, can somebody show me some real estate? He couldn't take it. He reached out to me and said, hey, there's this investor. They want to buy some houses. Can you help? I said, sure. At that time, hedge funds had a very bad stigma associated with them in the real estate world as like time wasters. You know, for those that don't know at home, like a hedge fund in simple terms, I know everybody's heard the term, but like as it pertains to the real estate world, it is a group of investors that basically pull their money together and buy real estate. That's the easiest way to describe it. And this was in the very early stages of investors realizing that they could, instead of buying into the S&P, they could buy into single families and like create their own asset portfolio in single family homes.
Like for rent? Is that okay? Got it.
Mostly for rent. Also with like the kind of the long-term potential of like selling.
Okay.
And like capitalizing on that appreciation. So hedge funds have since dominated the market and like have developed a very bad reputation to the public for, you know, whatever reason, for right or wrong reasons. But back then they were still very new in terms of the asset game of buying real estate. So I had a couple hedge funds reach out to me prior to that. They kind of wasted my time and fizzled out. You know, again, like I said, this was not anything new for a hedge fund to reach out to the firm. We were the largest foreclosure firm in the US. And so it was like, just like kind of another day at the office. Nobody really thought anything of it, including myself. I almost didn't take the lead. I end up showing to the appointment. I'm probably 22 at this point, and meet the guy. His name was David. He's out of Arizona, flew in, met with a couple real estate agents, already had the top agent in Charlotte hired to broker deals for them. And he basically was like, it started very nonchalant. We just kind of viewed some houses that I thought would work for them. You know, he was just kind of getting a general feel of the area, was it, and trying to pick a couple agents that like worked for him. Sure. We sit down at Chili's for lunch, and I'm just like, we're going over the paperwork, kind of talking about what we've seen so far. And, you know, I asked him just flat out, what do you think? You know, what do you think about or basically I asked him like, how many houses are you looking to buy, David? And he said, you can't find enough houses for me. And like, I didn't think anything of it. I've heard that talk before. It didn't really do anything for me, but it did feel a little different. I was like, okay, maybe this opportunity is going to be a little different. Long story short, he ends up looking me in the eyes at a coffee shop, later on that afternoon as we're kind of closing up. And he says, listen, like there's no reason why I should hire you. You're young, you're inexperienced. Like there's really no reason why I should hire you, but I feel you have this passion in your bones about real estate. And I feel like you're going to work your ass off for us, basically.
Right.
And he's like, so I'm going to give you an opportunity. It wasn't the sole opportunity. He had other agents in the market and things of that nature, but he gave me the opportunity. And, so I start brokering deals for this hedge fund, a very famously known hedge fund at this point. No, not BlackRock, because I know that's where everyone goes with that. Excuse me.
Well, nobody's perfect, Michael.
So I end up brokering deals for them, and the first deal they cancel. So I think, okay, crap, this is going to be the same bullshit time wasters. Well, then they don't start canceling, and they start closing, at a very rapid pace. So basically what brokering deals for them entailed was sitting behind a computer and finding MLS listings for them. Multiple listing service is where all the listings are funneled from a real estate perspective. And like, you just find the house that matches their criteria. You package it together with their cap sheet and all these different things, comparables, and you send it off to them through their system. Mm-hmm. This was 2013. So nothing was really that extravagant back then in terms of systems and things like that. A lot of it was done by hand. So needless to say, they start closing a lot of houses with me. And the first set of transactions that I submitted, because when you're under a broker, you get the checks. The checks are made out to the firm, and then you give it to your firm, and then they cut a split out to you. So
the commission?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So the commission is made out to, in this case, Benham Real Estate Group. You give the check to Benham Real Estate Group, and me and the Benhams had a arrangement for like, I think it was, I get 70% of it. They get 30% of it.
Oh, that's a good deal.
It is very, very good deal. Mm-hmm. It was a very fair deal. Actually above fair. It was actually better than the industry standard. So, I think their approach was just let your people get paid, and everybody's going to win.
Heck yeah.
And I appreciated that.
Sure.
Rather than like trying to like squeeze every dollar out of me. So the first time I submitted basically my closing checks to David, one of the brothers, was like a stack of 30 checks. I mean, it was insane. I think it was like a $60,000 check that he ended up cutting me, which was like a 22-year-old kid. That was insane money.
Oh yeah.
And it's still insane money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, especially around here, people here listening like, and a lot of people do really well in West Virginia, but obviously the economy is different.
Of course.
Which I'm sure you found out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And he's like, I've never seen anything like this, and at this point, he'd been in the real estate business for 8 years or so. He said, I've never seen anything like this, like this is wild. And that continues like a gravy train. And, and I'm not bragging when I say that. I'm actually very like, I don't feel bad for this season, but I'm very blessed. And I understand that, like, I'm fortunate, So it continues for, let's just call it a year and a half. And this is a very intense job. Like, I got corporate, and it gets more intense by the month, because you know how corporate America is. By the day, the stipulations get tighter. People want more from you. And I feel that. I mean, I have
constant growth. Yeah.
I have no life from 22 to 26, whatever, 23, 22 to 25. And I'm not complaining about it. This was a great opportunity. And I knew this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. This is all I had known in my adult life, but I knew this much, that money is not this easy to get. Like, money is harder than this to get, but it was hard. It was hard, man. It was like 18-hour days nonstop. I had no life. Just finding the new listing. And eventually, like, the competing brokers, like, everything had gotten so tight to where, like, if there was a new listing within literally 30 seconds, that thing was basically, you'd get a new listing and you would save it in the hedge funds system, and you'd save it by the MLS number. And so basically when that happened, nobody else could touch that for like a 48-hour period. No other agent could. So it was yours to like package together to the hedge fund. Mm-hmm. So it got so to the point where if there was a new listing within 30 seconds, it would be in that system. Somebody was watching it all day and night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very intense. And it was just me. It was a one-man group. Well, eventually I end up talking to one of the hedge fund managers. And she ends up just telling me, like, I end up telling her my deal that I have with the Brennan brothers, the 70-30 split. At this point, that 30% is substantial money. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that I'm paying to them per year, which more power to them. They deserved every penny of it. I have no issues with that. I would have never gotten the weed if not for their brand name, anything like that. But I had no non-compete with them. I was basically had been paying them, like I said, for over a year and a half, and I was doing all of the work. And again, that's business. I'm not mad at the Benhams for that, but from an X's and O's perspective, it was like, I see this big line item of $300,000 that I'm paying to them. And I'm like, as just from a business perspective, I'm like, I think something needs to be switched.
So you're probably like, let me get a nest egg settled to start my own thing.
I'd already had the nest egg at that point.
Okay. So you were kind of thinking like, why don't I just start my own thing and do the same thing? That's kind of how I started my marketing business, is like, well, it's like, I don't really need all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay.
So the woman had basically, my point of contact was like, yeah, you need to leave. She just was my vote of confidence. Like, this is ridiculous. You need to leave. You're paying too much money. You're doing all the work.
Sure.
She was a little more extreme than I would have been about it. But that was the confidence boost that I needed to make my own way in this. So I left. I went up to the Benham's office. I said, I'm leaving. And that was a big source of income for that firm at that time. Not the only source, but I was a big source. Mm-hmm. He didn't like that, obviously.
Sure.
And I started telling him, pulling out, there's NDA. This isn't about NDAs. This is about, integrity and all of this. Mm-hmm. I was just like, sorry, man, I'm leaving. It was just one of those calls that I had to make. I was, like I said, 25, 26. And it was one of those calls I had to make. That kind of fractured the relationship with us, obviously. You know what I mean?
That's a shame that stuff does it. Like, money does that. But it's very rare that you'll have an amicable separation. When and all this is important to set up for what we talk about later, because it puts you in this mind frame of being like numbers driven.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at them for the fracture.
Sure.
I respect those men almost like more than almost anyone on this earth. If it wasn't for them and the investment that they made into me, not only just financial and giving me opportunities in the business world, but just on a personal level, like they were my mentors for a couple years, and they were really strong men that cared about their bodies, their minds, their health. Like, they taught me principles like run through first base. They were ex-professional baseball players. So a lot of their analogies were like baseball driven, and it was like run through first base. Basically this idea of, if you hit a single, don't pull up before you hit that base, like run through it. And it's just like this general principle of like, do things 100%. How you do anything is how you do everything. Be faithful in the little. When I was scrubbing those toilets, that was like a very minimal thing, but like I saw what that could become. And like, I think so many people lose sight of what those little things can become. And these men, like I said, if it wasn't for them and that experience, like I would not literally be sitting here today without a shadow of a doubt. I wouldn't have the money to be on the road full time like I am. I wouldn't have the skill set been built. I wouldn't be sitting here today without a shadow of a doubt. And I wish they would realize that. I think they've separated themselves a little bit from me, and again, I get it, but I want them to know that like there's very few people on this earth that I respect more than them. But I had to make a business decision. And we'll talk about these business decisions later on.
Sure.
And I since talked to people in the organization, high level people in the organization that know them very well, that basically said, you did more than I would have done. I would have left a long time ago. Like, it's just the facts.
Sure. Yeah.
There was no non-competes in that company. You can't, like, you're opening yourself up. I mean, one thing about me, like when I started my real estate firm, like I had non-competes in my company. I as crazy as it sounds, I wasn't going to let anyone do that to me. So like I just put non-competes with all my employees.
What's the terms like after they leave? I'm just curious because I think mine's like 3 months after or something like that.
A non-compete has to be reasonable.
Yeah. I didn't want to lock them down for, 10 years.
An attorney, any good attorney will tell you, like, it has to be reasonable and enforceable.
Sure.
A 10-year non-compete wouldn't work. That's like not realistic.
Right.
I think mine was a year.
Yeah.
Something like
Sure.
that.
Yeah. That's pretty standard.
Yeah. It was basically like, you can't take my employee, my customers for a year or something like that. Mm-hmm. After that, whatever, it is what it is. After a while, you just got to stand on your own merit. Either you're good enough to keep the customer or not.
Yep. Your business will last if you are doing the proper things.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I start growing my business. All right. I'm on my own at this point, getting 100% of my income. And really starting to grow. Bless you. I have a decent amount of money at my disposal, so that gives me this opportunity to grow in ways that other people wouldn't have the opportunity. It gives me the opportunity to spend money towards problems or investments that other people wouldn't have the same opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I will admit, man, I'll go back to it again. I was blessed. I was blessed to have these opportunities, but I also worked my off. And I think those two things in conjunction with each other leads to tremendous growth.
Sure. I
think a lot of times, I don't tolerate any talk of you were just lucky. I will admit that I got lucky breaks, but there was other agents that had those same opportunities that I did, and they were fired, from the same hedge fund. So like, obviously there was a substantial amount of work that went with it. You
took your cards and ran with it.
I ran with it, for the races. I'm like I'm married by this point. You know what I mean? I'm like got that personal side going, but my focus fully is my real estate career. And it's funny because like right now, everybody knows me from my content. Like there was a time where only people knew me from my real estate. And it was like the thing people asked me about all the time. I would get real questions and DMs constantly about real estate. I start making my own business, start hiring people. We start out of my spare bedroom of my home, end up getting a very reasonable 1,000 square foot office space in Charlotte, and just start growing. I mean, with the hedge fund being the catalyst, the income catalyst. I mean, we're still selling, for 30, 40 houses a month to them. At this point, their stipulations started getting stricter and stricter. They started taking more and more of the money, but it was still really good money. Mm-hmm. And I branch out. And in hindsight, whatever, I would have just laser focused on the hedge fund. I wouldn't have hired anyone. I may have hired some admin or something, but like I would have just laser focused on the hedge fund and ridden that out until the end. Right. But I was, very ambitious and very like I had all these dreams and ambitions of growing a big real estate company. So I decided to branch out, and I branched into a number of things. Flipping, I'd always flipped phones and all this stuff. I started flipping houses and was pretty damn good at it.
Dyson vacuums
before. Yeah.
You got to move up.
I did actually flip a few Dysons before the coupon endeavor.
Oh yeah.
Yep. But yeah, you got to move up. And so again, I was pretty good at flipping houses. Those were the days where it was actually easier to flip a house. Things weren't as expensive. You could like remodel from start to finish a whole house for $30,000, which couldn't even scratch the surface today in a place like Charlotte. That same rehab would be $80,000 today. So it's almost like become too expensive to flip. Now, granted, there are people that do it successfully, but like I start flipping, I start doing property management. I get agents on board. Like I'm growing a multifaceted real estate company here. I end up getting a 5,000 square foot office with 26 employees, a bunch of subcontractors. And like, I'm growing, I'm doing this thing, man. I'm living my dream. But then there becomes this level of stress to that growth, and that growth that was such a blessing at one point started becoming a massive curse in a lot of ways. Because the truth is, you can't build a house on a faulty foundation. Business, you can't shortchange the principles of business. Things like proper accounting, things like proper systems in place to manage business, good back-end infrastructure to monitor things like work orders and stuff like that for your rental properties. Mm-hmm. And I was just so focused on growth that I felt like I could out-earn my stupidity. I really felt like no matter what happened, I could always out-earn it because I was making a lot of money. And it was just like, that was my mentality. I like, if there was a problem, I can pay for it and kind of like fix it. You know what I'm saying? And I really was living like that successfully, quote unquote, for a while.
Sure. Did you have a lot of debt?
None.
That's awesome.
So I was always a Dave Ramsey fan.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
and
sir.
I still am.
Baby steps.
I've deviated a little bit from it over the years.
Right.
But for the most part, in terms of like personal debt and all that, I've always kept to just no personal debt.
I'm very close to step 7.
Awesome.
Very close.
Congrats.
So yeah.
What is that? Give like no one else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I do kind of, but when you get your house paid off, you're technically there. So we got a little bit, but we're almost there, man.
You inspired me with the $15,000 you gave last year.
I don't know the exact number. I know it was somewhere in that realm, but we got some, and I'm very grateful to be able to do it. But I've always believed in morally doing something. to just give back. I don't know, but
it's important. Man.
But yeah, but to each their own. But I've been blessed to have the opportunity to do that. But that's good to know that, like you say, Dave Ramsey, like I'm zeroed into your kind of your process because I know all about it. So
so that was my guy. I had all this money coming in. I had Dave Ramsey in my head, and it was like a good thing, you know. I did a lot of things bad during that season that we'll get to. Not morally bad, but just structurally bad. All right. I was an idiot. You know, like I said, I was stupid. I was a young kid that didn't know what he was doing. But what I did do right, and I always had this in my head, was if I buy real estate, it'll like protect me. Like I always felt like at least I could shield myself from myself if I just put my money in real estate. So I started buying real estate. Not a ton, but a healthy amount. I started paying cash for these properties, and I think I built up a portfolio of 10 of them or something like that paid for.
Wow.
It wasn't that hard back then. I mean, it was hard, but my average price was maybe $50,000 back then.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't like that extreme considering how much money I was making. I ended up, like I said, paid cash for them. I had since refinanced them and ended up buying some more real estate. And that's where I kind of deviate a little bit from Dave Ramsey rather than, having a fully paid for portfolio. I have some debt on my real estate.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah. That's how he went broke. That's why he's so against it.
I know.
Because they pulled the notes on him.
They did.
Yeah.
And I'm always very careful of that. I'm always keeping that in the back of my head.
Sure.
But they pulled the notes for him because he was in high risk. I think he was in very high risk stuff. Like, I don't think it was like, it wasn't the stuff that I'm in. I'm in like very conservative loans.
Right.
It's neither here nor there. So, but yeah, so I had done some good things. I mean, I knew I was self-aware enough to know that there's some things behind the scenes that aren't right. But as long as I buy real estate, like it can kind of protect me. And it did for a while, but like I said, that I just remember very clearly, I had like 900 properties under management. I was still working for the hedge fund. Like I said, 26 employees and an owner. What really started, we could kind of shield some of the problems before we grew too big, catch problems before they turned into bigger problems. But what really started fracturing my system was when I started taking on large apartment complexes. And I had one 80 unit and I had one 110 unit. And like, these are massive endeavors. Like you can't just willy-nilly take on a 110 unit apartment complex. Sure. Like this is very serious stuff we're talking about here. If you don't have the system in place, like this can get bad very fast.
I imagine the regulations are a lot more strict and there's a lot of things that come into play that you haven't necessarily. Yeah.
If I have one property or if I have 10 properties and, my systems aren't great, but I can kind of manage, like I said, I can kind of manage like lack of communication issues or like handymen that aren't doing their job correctly and stuff like that. When you start dealing with 110 properties, every problem you have starts getting exponentially worse.
Every day, probably too.
Yep. Things like water was being threatened to be turned off on Christmas Day, like to that 110 unit apartment complex. We're talking massive problems. And like the 80 unit apartment complex, I remember the owner was younger than me at the time. And again, like I was only 24, 25 at the time, but his dad came with him to come to our office. And it was like a 5,000 square foot office overlooking like a river and all this. It was beautiful on the outside. It was this beautiful facade. Beautiful facade is what I call it.
Sure.
And I remember we sat down in the boardroom and I could always talk my way out of stuff, and not even in a manipulative way. I could just talk. I had confidence in myself and I still have that confidence in myself that like I can figure this out. Mm-hmm. But I remember like, I just remember his dad, like I did my spiel. And again, it wasn't like an unethical spiel. It was just my spiel, it was just like, yeah, we can do this. We can figure it out. And I had every intention of figuring things out. But like his 80 unit was starting to get some serious problems. And I just remember he's like, your system, I just did my spiel. And he just looked at me as like, your system's broken. Yeah. Like, and I was like, he's like, you need to realize your system is broken. And that was like a very eye-opening like moment for me. And,
was you kind of deep down like, damn it, I know, or was it kind of something you weren't really realizing yet to that
I don't think I realized it.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't. I knew I had problems. I knew there was issues, and And I thought I could just keep hiring my way out of it, just hire another person. But the problem became when you don't have the framework set up for basic stuff in your business, and then you start growing, like problems just get out of control. So
build on a house of cards, kind of.
If you don't have accounting practices in place, for instance, like you can't just hire an accountant and that go away.
Yeah.
I remember my accountant was like pulling her hair out. Like
Yes.
it was a nightmare.
And if you chose like 2 years before to bring the accountant on, it would have saved you so much headache in trying to fix all that. Because I'm kind of going through that now, which I've done an okay job. Ours is nowhere near the scale of what this is. But having 2 businesses now, I've had to bring on an accountant. There's no way. Yeah.
You're older.
There's there's just no way. I mean, it's been 10 years. So thankfully we've been able to maneuver around it. But I can visually, you're doing a really good job laying this out because I visually can picture all this. So
and I was a grown man. I mean, I make my own decisions.
Sure.
At the end of the day, they're my decisions. And I don't blame anybody. I rise and fall with my decisions. But there's only so much you can expect from somebody that's in that situation.
Yeah.
It's just the truth.
And I think this is a good point. I'll kind of set up how I learned about you.
Yeah.
And then we walk through that because I think you've laid out to where like your system was kind of, built on a poor foundation, and then just things started to happen. So basically I saw this guy making videos, and they was really good topics and really good delivery. And, it's crazy you don't really have a background in video because you do a really good job storytelling.
Thank you.
And I can see like how you're using a lot of those skill sets to zero into this.
Yeah.
So, I noticed, and the way I am, like, I'm always very cautious when it comes to people coming in West Virginia and telling stories, just because over the years, there have been so many negative portrayals, and I didn't see that from yours. I saw like really good, important stories needing to be told. Your approach is more, I don't think confrontational is the word, more direct than mine.
Yeah.
But I think we need both of them. So I'm like, all right, yeah, this dude's great. And then I ended up commenting on one of the videos. I can't remember. I think it's the one you did about
the mountain water.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water with no mountain.
Yeah.
A mountain with no water.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and I'll say, after I commented, I've never looked into you after, other than that. And then I said, well, since I commented, let me do some diligence here, and I'll kind of, see if I can figure out who this guy is. So I can know and I can vouch for him, or, on the contrary, we got to kind of figure something else out, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But so I look you up, and it's pretty quick because you made some national headlines with, I think you made it to John Oliver.
Yep.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, John Oliver.
And
a couple others. I can't remember. I was on something else too. I can't remember what it was.
I came across some random news story.
Yep.
It was like some news channel. I think it was the people you actually did the interview with.
Yeah.
And
probably WCNC.
That sounds right. It's on YouTube. We're not going to play it, but it's out there. So I watch it, and it's during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, a lot of people may realize, may not. I know landlords are going to know exactly what we're talking about, but they were kind of given forbearances. Would that be the word on rent?
I think the better word would be they were given. There was a moratorium, I think is the word that they use, against evictions.
Sure.
So a stalling of evictions, or a pausing of evictions.
Yeah, through the pandemic, because basically people couldn't go to work, so people were really struggling financially. There hadn't been any kind of, I don't think the $600 a week thing had started yet, but they were essentially asking landlords to kind of cover expenses. I don't know if landlords were receiving any kind of funding or anything like that from the government. Not yet. Was it like a reimbursement thing?
I don't think they ever got any funding.
Oh, really?
Personally, I never heard of that.
Well, it's good to know.
They could have been, but I don't know.
Yeah. So they do this news story, and it's kind of a hit piece. I'll be honest. Like, it really is, because there isn't much context to what you say there. It was basically like landlords are trying a different approach. And then the quote, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something to the fact of, nobody wants to throw single mothers out on the street.
Yep.
But it's just business. Now, there were some other words.
Yeah.
But obviously was cutting away to make you look really bad. Now, granted, that was kind of a belief that you had because it wasn't fair to you for the landlords to be covering that rent. And now that we hear all the backstory of you having all these pressures building up, I see like maybe a passive aggressive explosion occurring, and it's like, you know what?
Oh, it was very aggressive.
Sure.
No, I'm playing over there. You're talking about on the news.
Yeah, on the news. It's like, all this stuff's been bubbling up for a few years, and I'm just gonna give them a piece of my mind.
Yep.
And then it, went kind of viral for a little bit. So I looked that up and I was like, oh, well, that's kind of against my moral values. I don't really agree with this. So I'm going to kind of delete my comment and then just let it be. So let's walk through that, and then we'll walk through what happened after that with me and you. So that interview, how did it take place?
Well, there's a couple things we need to, a couple stages we need to set first.
Sure.
I want to move on to the content. Obviously, that's what a lot of people are watching for, but I want to make sure we don't shortchange this part of the process.
Yeah.
Because there was two elements of my real estate. If people were to look me up, as Michael Bowman Real Estate, you would see two elements of controversy. Number one would be what you just mentioned, and we can get into that in depth, obviously. But then number two would be like a loss of licensure or a surrender of licensure. All right.
And there were some Yelp reviews that I came across, and stuff like that. But when you're dealing with that many people, I understand that's going to happen. But the Yelp reviews, any reviews you see out of there on my old real estate firm, I'm not going to sit here and say they were not valid. I mean, like I said, we did our best. Like we did, we had good intentions, but good intentions can only take you so far. At the end of the day, if you're not offering proper service, like it's not fair to the customer or anyone. I would say we had a lot of like bad tenants that we took over that were, stuck in our ecosystem that were, not great people that would leave bad reviews and stuff like that. But I'm not going to sit here and say every one of those reviews were fraudulent by any stretch. And kind of like a smoke, there's fire thing.
Yeah, it's probably the opposite. Probably the majority of them were true in some capacity. We just weren't doing proper things to kind of set that up.
Sure.
But yeah, I think so. In 2020, we'll talk about the surrendering of the licensure after that.
Sure,
because it came after that.
Yeah.
In 2020, this was obviously like the pandemic, like you said. I mean, I had my real estate company. We were going through our problems for sure. All right, but we can kind of conclude that here in a moment. The pandemic happens, and we don't have the context that we have now, so we're looking at it from hindsight. But like back then, we're talking January and February 2020. Tenants were reaching out to me instantly and saying, like, before anything had closed, before any like jobs were affected, before anybody had like been on the streets or anything like that, tenants were reaching out to me as an excuse to not pay their rent. I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. Pandemic's happening. And it was just started becoming like this buzzword, pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, like I said, having tenants is kind of like having employees. I got great employees. I don't have a huge team anymore. We'll get into kind of how I dwindled things down to what it is today. But I don't struggle with employee drama because I vet them well. I have a great team that I vet well, communicate with well, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I offer professional service to them. They offer professional service to me. And it's the same thing with tenants. I'm not one of those landlords, and I never have been, that have thought tenants are bad. I think tenants are fine, but I do think there is a remnant of very bad tenants out there that will ruin your life. And I've seen them over the years, So keep in mind, my company at the time has 900 properties under management. I think something like $700,000 monthly rent roll. So it's a pretty substantial company.
Sure.
And in that mix is a group of tenants that we vetted and a group of tenants that came on board from other property managers vetting or other owners own vetting or a variety of tenants, because a lot of people will find you and be like, they'll give you a situation that's a problem. A lot of times people don't reach out to property managers until there's a problem, unless they're a person that understands their limitations and is just like, I don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, a lot of times people will try to go about managing it themselves or something, get themselves in a bad situation, and then they will turn it over to a property manager. Or you have a lot of property managers out there that don't vet their tenants correctly, and then we end up taking it over. So I say all that to say there was a mixture of tenants in there. All right. There was a whole group of tenants in there.
It's kind of like a mini city. It's because you're going to have a certain percentage of people that have, different issues, name an issue, whatever. So I can see like when a crack starts to form, it would start to widen pretty quick.
So they start reaching out to me and I basically like get ahead of it. All right. So again, this is probably end of January, early February. I send a letter to the tenants that basically says something along the lines of, we understand these are uncertain times, and they were very uncertain, and we have empathy with that. And I said that in the letter. We have empathy with you. We want the best for you, etc. However, and this is basically like was my line in the sand. I basically quoted Dave Ramsey in the letter, not him directly, but talking about the four walls. Like in times of crisis, your four walls are the most important. Keeping your four walls intact are the most essential. Your house, your water, utilities, your food, the four walls of your life. Mm-hmm. And I basically said, like, let's not compound this problem. Like, keep your four walls intact. Let's prioritize your four walls. And I basically said, we understand there's problems out here, but I just want to be clear. The terms of the lease are still in place, and we are going to be enforcing the terms of the lease in good times and in bad.
Which is implying eviction.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's basically saying the standards we had before this are still the standards we have today.
Sure. So there wasn't any kind of like, well, we'll give you like 45 days or any kind of like, it was just basically like, well, and there was no moratorium yet. So it was like, well, we got to go by the lease.
Yeah.
And you're thinking like, we have a huge overhead. Yep. And if people don't pay their rent, it's going to be a huge issue.
Huge issue.
So you were professionally trying to lay that out there. Okay, got it.
In terms of the 45-day thing, I just didn't feel that was my call. It's not my property.
Sure.
And I just felt that is not my call to make. I'm not going to offer this to these people. I'm just going to hold them to a standard, and we're going to keep that standard in good times and in bad times.
Got it.
Well, it ends up so I end up sending that letter to one of my biggest clients who was kind of a mentor to me at the time. And like a lot of things that happen in my life, sometimes I don't realize what they were until afterwards. Like he read the letter and he said, don't be surprised when this makes it to the news. And that shocked me.
Like, he's like, he gave you a little warning.
It
like,
shocked me. I was not expecting that.
Right.
I didn't think this letter was anything crazy. I just thought it was a very simple letter, very straightforward letter. And that's the way my brain works. It's very straightforward and cut and dry.
Sure.
But to a lot of people, like that was very insensitive.
Well, devil's advocate, like a lot of people couldn't pay their rent anyway. And a lot of people, you know what I mean? So, and then these years of training kind of cuts that emotion from your brain,
of course,
which I think we're going to talk about later, but you've been building a lot of that back just being in West Virginia. Yeah. So I think this is going to go full circle. But so he gives you a warning. Mm-hmm. Was it that letter that kind of sparked the interviews, or how did the phone start ringing? So
I start getting emails from the tenants that are basically like, we're sending this to the news.
Uh-oh.
And I said, F it, I'm going to send it to the news. So I contact all the local news stations, and I send it to them. And I propose to them that you guys should run a story about landlording during the pandemic.
Right.
And by this point, things are shut down. It's like and I think there is a moratorium in place at this point. So that kind of excels. Everything shuts down.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I send off the letter. I send the letter to the news stations and say, you should run a story about this, kind of give them an idea about it. Because I was like, you know what, if they're going to say it, if they're going to send it, I'd rather just get ahead of it. And that's the way I always am. I just want to get ahead of things, not from a cover my tracks perspective, but I'd rather be the one to own something and like address something than someone say something about me.
Sure.
It's kind of why I'm here today, to be honest.
No, yeah. That's kind of where it came in. But at the same time, I know I'm guilty of leading with my, I don't know, not my brain, but my heart sometimes. And that gets me into situations that I didn't really mean to get into, that kind of blow up. And thankfully this one didn't, but that's kind of, that's kind of where I went wrong on how I approached you with it.
You're a man of pride, bro. And I called you out. We'll get to that. I'm sure we can get to that.
No, yeah. We'll definitely get to that.
Yeah.
But I want to describe the feeling of when nationally you're essentially known as Ebenezer Scrooge, kind of. It's kind of like, now there was other stories going on. It wasn't just this one, but it was kind of like, hey, here's the guy we can all rally against, is what you felt when you watched it.
Yeah.
But that's good to know that you actually sent out the lead.
Yeah.
You don't really hear that in the interview.
No, you don't. Yeah, you definitely don't.
But
so I end up getting a couple interviews, and I give very softball approaches to them. And they end up running them, but they don't go anywhere, which is fine. Whatever. Maybe that was the way it should have been. But another guy reaches out to me with WCNC. His name was Nate Morabito or something like that. And I just saw him and I was like, this is the type of guy that like definitely could make something go viral.
Right.
And it's not that I was trying to make it viral, but I felt it was kind of this weird experiment I was doing of let's see if it can.
Right.
I was bored during the pandemic and I was just like, let's see if it can go viral. That being said, nothing I said was manufactured. It was exactly how I felt at the time. So I get on a Zoom call with him. So the other two interviews were in person. I think by this point, everything was even more shut down and we were on Zoom only at that point. And I was in my office. The entire office was empty. Like I was in one of the WeWork offices. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. WeWork's, I don't know if WeWork's still around anymore, but
I think they are.
The entire WeWork office was empty. It was literally just me on the third floor of a Charlotte office. It was incredible, actually. And we have this interview and he basically just, asked me flat out, and
good journalism.
Yeah. I don't think he was that bad. I personally don't think it was a hit piece. I think he did probably what I would have done and clipped the best parts of the interview.
Makes sense
to get the most. I don't feel like he quoted me out of context or anything like that, if I'm being honest.
And I say hit piece, like I just mean like
I get it.
This is in context, a 3-hour conversation. You know what I mean? And,
of course.
And then they only got such amount of time to just say, okay, let me cut these little snippets out of there and make something. But that's good to know that you meant it.
Yeah, I did. And so I basically said, to reiterate what I said, I said, nobody wants to throw a single mother and her 2 kids out on the streets, but that's business.
Right.
And I said it with a very Ebenezer Scrooge-like face. Let's be honest,
Oh, I caught that vibe.
Yeah. And back then, to be honest, I really did pride myself on being the landlord's advocate. Sure. Like it was something I was very passionate about. I didn't feel like the landlords were the ones that needed to hold this bag. Because the truth is during that time, a lot of people were reaching out. Oh, the landlord should do this. The landlord should do this. And a lot of people in general have bad mentalities towards landlords in general. It's kind of like corporations. Everyone talks bad about corporations. It's like trendy now to just hate the corporation. But like corporations provide jobs. Like there's good things that corporations do. Let's be honest.
Sure.
There's a lot of bad that they do, but there's a lot of good that they do. And like landlords are the same. Like not every landlord. In fact, the majority of landlords are not hedge funds. The majority of landlords own like 1 or 2 properties. They're just very little fish in a big pond. And at the time, that was my customer. My customer had 1.4 houses. So basically a house and a half on average. I had some that had 8. I had some that had 1. And it all averaged out to about 1.4 houses. Or maybe it was 2.4 or something. It was a very small amount, I remember.
Sure.
And I just felt like it wasn't fair, because my average client was a grandmother who, an elderly woman whose husband had passed away. I'm just going to use a very specific example that we still manage to this day, an elderly woman whose husband built an 11-unit apartment complex by hand. And like, that was their pride and joy. And that was their retirement account. Like that was their nest egg. All in that one apartment complex.
So that would be a typical client of yours.
Yeah, it wasn't like this out-of-state corporation. It was a literal elderly woman with a 11-unit apartment complex, and that was her sole income. And I think I even said that in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't really buy into this whole like landlords are evil type thing. There's a lot of bad landlords out there, but I will say even in the midst of like my worst times as a landlord, in terms of my most reckless times, of growth without safety nets, I still always believed that we should take care of our properties. I still always believed like tenants should have a reasonable place to live.
So to clarify, you're not like a slumlord.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
in fact, we got rid of we still to this day, we don't really let them in, but like if someone's a slumlord, we are not interested in working with them.
Right.
And I don't think anyone would ever say they're a slumlord. I have met some people that would, if I'm being honest, but no, like I'm like, there's just a lot of liability that comes in place with being a slumlord. We're not interested in that. Like I said, even in my worst times of like recklessness, I still was always prioritizing the tenant, you know, well, I would say this, the quality of the tenant, the quality of the house that the tenant was in. I felt like if we provide them a good property and hold them to a high standard, that those things can be a marriage together.
It'll kind of be a filter.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Because my priority was always the client, the property owner, because they were my client.
Right.
Like I'm contractually obligated to the client. I didn't see the client I didn't see the property owner getting representation, and I wanted it to be that voice for for them.
Sure. It's kind of like I get a union vibe. It's like union leaders are this way and they want to represent the worker, and but at the same time, listen, I'm a capitalist. I understand why people want to make money, and I think that a capitalist will understand everything we're saying. What I kind of judge my scale on, it's like a moral capitalist. It's like we're on a scale.
Yeah.
Like, do you have people growing with you?
Right.
Are you doing the right thing morally, not legally necessarily?
Yes.
That's kind of how I base things. So I get it. I mean, you gotta pay the bills.
Yeah.
So
that was it. And listen, man, you said it. I have grown with empathy over the year. I would just say over the year, definitely over the years, but over the time that I've been in West Virginia, I have grown in empathy. I just have. And I can't say I regret anything I said. I meant it. But would I have said things differently today? Yes. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. Sometimes like there's things that are true, but you just don't say them. Like it was kind of one of those situations where tensions were high. It was maybe not the right thing to say at that time. You know what I'm saying? But I still meant it with every fiber of my being in context. And I still mean it today. I mean, if someone came to me and was like, hey, like I want you to manage my property. Like I always say, if you can't evict somebody on Christmas Day, you shouldn't be a landlord. Like you should just give it to a property manager because being a property manager, being a property owner, you're forced to make tough decisions sometimes. You're forced to look past your heart sometimes and look at the numbers. I mean, you just are. It's just the facts. And
you don't think you'd offer a 30-day thing now or something? Some kind of a collaboration or?
I still don't think that was my place.
Right.
Maybe on the properties that I owned, but I don't think that's my place to offer that on my property owners' properties.
Okay. So that's, and explaining that your clients are the property owners. Yeah. You're kind of like one stage up on the umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So you would have to kind of convince them.
Technically, they're one stage up above me and I'm directly underneath them.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. That's kind of how that would work. It would reverse. And I'd have to convince them. And I just didn't feel that was my position.
Would they do the eviction and not you? Like, or how does that kind of work? I just want to make sure I got the structure correct.
Well, what ended up happening was the moratorium was in place and it ended up halting evictions anyway. So it was much to do about nothing.
Sure. It was just, now that video hits. When did you start to figure out like, I kind of done something here? I'm just curious. I'm curious because I imagine you'll start getting random texts from maybe family or friends like, hey, man, I saw this over in, whatever state. I'm just checking on you.
I don't remember the exact day, man. A lot's happened. We're talking 6 years ago at this point, as crazy as that sounds.
Sure, yeah.
But very quickly starts flying, and I kind of, like I said, I kind of was owning that whole Ebenezer Scrooge thing at the time. I'm just going to be that landlord that's tough,
So you kind of like,
and I
put your feet down.
Yeah, I put my claws. Yeah. Like, and I'm still to that to this day in a lot of ways of like, when I start getting challenged on something that I have conviction, I'm not going to bend, and that has its good things and its bad things.
Which gets into West Virginia later, which we'll talk about that too if you want. But
of course.
But I get that vibe from you. And I think that does play mostly well for people.
Yeah.
But sometimes like I know I can be impulsive.
Of course.
With certain decisions.
Right.
I think that comes with being an entrepreneur, sometimes leading by your heart too.
But you've probably learned over the years to be less impulsive because we've learned that doesn't make proper decisions.
Yeah, I can kind of navigate it. I still make mistakes all the time.
Of course.
And I get frustrated and I'm a very sensitive person.
Okay.
And like when it comes, like I wouldn't be a good landlord. I'd be like, oh yeah, just give it another month. You know, my business would be shut down pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had one house that we were renting, and I essentially have gave it away.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't do it.
It's hard, man.
Sure.
And I see a lot of property owners that struggle with that, but I've also seen tremendous heartache from that. Like property owners that own a piece of property that lose sleep because they cannot get their property right. And that's tough, man. You know, so that's the thing. All right. I don't know if there's much more to say about that other than it goes viral pretty substantially.
John Oliver was probably the biggest one.
John Oliver was the biggest. He hit on it very lightly, but he hit on it. But that was really the tail end. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere else big. I can't remember where. It was on another big station. Maybe Bill Maher. I can't remember exactly. It was something like that. But, you know, and it was intense, but it was like a firework. It blew out pretty quick. But like a lot of my family members got death threats and stuff like that.
Wow, really?
Yeah, like it was serious.
Did you get threats?
Oh, yeah. If you go back on my Facebook and look at some of the old profile pics, you'll see some of the comments still. I haven't cleaned it out. I don't care. It is what it is. But you'll see a lot of like people's comments.
That's part of this too, is why I felt this conversation would be so good is because you didn't change your name. You came into West Virginia. You're making videos under Michael Bowman. It's like,
I'm going to ride and die with you, man.
Sure.
I am who I am, man. You know, and so that's that. I mean, there's really, in my opinion, that kind of puts a button on the COVID topic. We got to kind of wrap up my real estate, you know, kind of the second element of that. And then we can kind of get into the West Virginia side if that works for you.
And I did see so I saw the license was gone. Admittedly, I didn't really look into it. I kind of saw enough with the news piece to know that I'm kind of going to just hope in those situations. I kind of sit and hope for the best. Yeah. And then I'm kind of like, well, I hope, you know, I'm in no way want to look like a hater because I'm not. And I want people to do good work. And you were doing important videos. And I just said, well, I'm just going to hope for the best. Yeah. So the license was essentially revoked, or is it back now? Or
no, I'm never going to be licensed again. And I could apply for it, but I have no interest in it. So basically during this season where things were growing, and again, the COVID element is a complete side quest that has nothing to do with why I surrendered my license. So let's be clear on that.
Sure.
But to kind of put a button on the house of cards, so to speak. And it was genuinely a house of cards. If I had to write a book, I would name it that. I mean, you know, there was a lot of problems in my company. So 2017, I, you know, separate from my wife. At the time, we were together for 9 years. You know, I have my business kind of really starting to get very stressful for me. And all of, like I said, because like these problems, like you can kind of like mask problems for a while, but something happens and they just kind of start bubbling to the surface all at once. It's the best way I can describe it. And I had every problem in the book in my business, from lack of proper employees that were trained. Some of them were not even proper employees to begin with, that should have never been working for me, to clients that weren't part of our mission, to properties that we should have never been managing, to handymen that shouldn't have been on our team, to accounting. The biggest one was the accounting. You know, absolutely no accounting practices in my business. I'm talking a business that was grossing $1.5 million a year. I mean, no accounting practices. As insane as that sounds.
Sure, and that's one of the pillars that can shut a business down
without a doubt.
Yeah, accounting is so important.
Well, you know, it's funny because the number one reason a small business fails is lack of business. The number two reason a small business fails is too much business. So
I can believe it. Yeah.
Too much business can sink you.
Oh yeah.
If you're not, it will sink you fast.
Oh yeah.
So where was I at?
You were just kind of walking through, you're saying, you had poor practices, poor employees, and all these different things that culminated into the licensure being removed.
So this tremendous amount of stress starts building on me. A divorce is looming. You know, we have assets, so it's not just this cut and dry divorce of just like, you take the dog, I'll take the cat, blah blah blah. It was like a very complicated mess, and like we started having to like dive into the actual financials for the divorce, and it was like a muddied mess. I mean, it was impossible for a third party. For anyone that's been through divorce, like third parties have to look at your stuff, and nobody could look at our stuff because it was a mess. No, there was no
complicated
structure to any of it. It was just like none of the books were up to date. As crazy as it sounds, as sick as this sounds, 3 straight consecutive years of tax returns were unfiled. So,
Lord.
Yeah, that was a mess. 2016 to 2019, unfiled at the time.
And then when you file, you talk about a penalty.
Yes.
The IRS is, golly, they are.
I know.
Loan sharks, dude. But yeah,
they just want you to pay on time, and when you don't, you're
well. That's basically it. Like if you don't follow the strict rules, then the loan shark kicks in. So I think it's like daily interest too, and all kinds of crazy things like that. But okay.
I always felt, and just to put a button on that, I always felt like the real estate commission getting involved was my destiny. It was just this weird like thing that I don't even think it was like this premonition. I think you just know that like eventually you're going to have like governing bodies looking at your if you're not doing things right. So I think it was just this sixth sense that I knew that the real estate commission was like eventually going to be knocking on my door.
Oh yeah.
They started getting a substantial amount of complaints of a variety of reasons
from tenants, from
owners, from everybody. Okay. And I think this was pre-pandemic. So I was already in the middle of a real estate commission investigation during the pandemic. So just keep that in mind. So I show,
man, that's some stones though that still go on that interview and just feel like, I know all this other crap's going on.
Part of it was just I didn't give like I said, I was never full of myself. I will honestly admit that, but I was definitely reckless.
Sure. Well, it was kind of your pride working against you. Yeah. I got you.
So I have a Jaguar. Like I'm kind of like, everything looks great on the outside, and I'm driving to work. I'm driving to work one morning with my Jaguar. And I remember getting a call or a text from somebody saying Spear with the real estate commission is here. And
his name's Spear?
Her name was Spear, Speir.
What a perfect name.
Yeah.
for that job.
And Spear is the investigator for audits. Okay.
Right.
They're opening up an audit on me. I get there, and I don't have anything to give her. The first thing the real estate commission asks for is your books. I didn't have any books. I mean, it's that crazy.
Did you have like QuickBooks set up or anything? Or?
I did, but none of them were up to date.
Right. Because I know like mine links with the bank. I'm just curious if it was just unorganized.
None of it was reconciled for years.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So let me be clear about something. When you have a property management business and you are managing money for other people, you have to just think about it. It makes sense. You have $600,000 of other people's money. So you have multiple things coming into the business, but one of it, which is security deposits that are in your control at all times. And then you have rent income coming in and out of your control at all times. So I had $1.3 million of other people's money coming into my business at one time every single month. You have to have what's called trust account reconciliations for these books.
Sure, yeah.
You can't just like willy-nilly this. You have to have people looking at it, making sure every single dime is accounted for.
Everything's tagged, everything's flagged, and then you hit the button to officially lock it in.
Down to literally the penny. I mean, I think you can have like a $20 room. Okay, so I had none of that. Part of my lack of accounting practices was lack of trust account reconciliations. I didn't have any trust accounts. So I had the money, but it was in a cheching account. And it was sitting there.
Man, this makes me itch because I could imagine the stress.
It was insane, and it wasn't insane in the moment. It was insane when things started crumbling.
Right.
So she knows things are bad.
She's like, all right, this is going to be a quick day.
No, it actually was a long one for her. But yeah, I get what you're saying. She knows, she was a very experienced woman. She knows what she's looking at. She knows the house of cards when she sees it.
Right.
And so she starts opening up this investigation against the company, and complaints are still filing in. It's just getting from bad to worse.
Sure.
And, for some reason, how or another, I ended up delaying the process multiple years. I think I was under investigation for something like 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a pretty long time.
Did you lawyer up?
I did.
Okay. I mean, you have to.
Yeah. I did. And he did the best he could.
Sure. He's like, man, what'd you do to me here?
A lawyer can only do so much, man. So.
And I'm glad we can laugh about this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to think I'm
no.
Enjoying your real estate demise, because I'm not. But I think that this is very relatable.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being so open. But yeah, carry on.
Just to kind of boil it down, I mean, there's really not a ton left to talk about as it pertains to that. But I end up, so my divorce is happening, the investigation's happening, and things are crumbling. And I start getting this idea that like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to continue to fight this thing and get rid of people, like dwindle this. I'm losing business at the time. I'm hemorrhaging business. Like a lot is going on. And I just, one employee after another, I just get rid of. And I get the team down to a manageable amount and a pretty good amount, like of people that actually mean well and are doing their job. And I start building structures and systems in place, even while I'm under investigation. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with a fight. I'm going to go down swinging, and I'm going to go down properly. So I start building spreadsheets and all this, like these systems in place to manage the business, to manage the tenants, to do everything. Like, and I start doing what I should have done from day one while I'm under investigation.
Sure.
It's not enough though. I mean, the damage was done. Years of unpaid returns, years of for lack of a better word, I'm really careful with the words I use, but negligence. I mean, as it pertains to my client's money, sloppiness as it pertains to their money. And it starts getting to a point where we are either going to trial or I need to surrender my license, and trial becomes very expensive. At this point, I have spent a lot of money fighting this. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars from my attorneys to my CPAs to everything cleaning this up. I mean,
right.
It is a nightmare.
Did you get sued civilly? No?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's good.
Never got sued once. I mean, I got actually.
So you kind of like fixed the leaks before they,
Yeah, there was some like little stuff that popped up where people basically sued, but it was very minor. And I did kind of, everyone got reimbursed. Now, I am not going to sit here and act like none of my clients ever lost money due to the framework of the company that was built. At the end of the day, like there's no doubt in my mind that clients could have made more money had my business been under control and properly running. And that's just the facts.
Sure.
But in terms of the X's and O's of the actual money in the trust funds, every client got paid.
Well, that's good.
When it came time to surrendering my license, we still had a book of business that wanted to stay with us. By that point, it was 2021. We'd actually gotten things pretty cleaned up. I mean, for lack of a better word, it was pretty cleaned up. I mean, things were running pretty smooth. I think my company was down to 5 employees. We were working out of like an office space and all of that. I had a guy working for me that was with me through thick and thin. He was my highest paid employee and he was a broker as well. And we just had a discussion. I'm losing my license. I'm giving my license up. Like, do you want to start a company and basically start fresh with this thing? And we bring as many customers over as we possibly can. And that's what we did.
Gotcha.
I would say 75% of the customers we had with the old company came over, and
that's pretty good.
It was pretty good. It does show you that a lot of the clients had loyalty to us. I mean, if you look back during that season, you will see a lot of positive reviews. There was a lot of people that had good experiences with us, but then there was just like this overarching amount of people that were really experiencing the negatives of the company and, my decisions to like grow too fast.
Well, that, and sure, like in your defense, a national news story like that is going to bring some reviews.
Yeah.
From people who don't know you.
The truth. Yeah, that's for sure.
For sure. Yeah. But you're taking accountability and that sounds like you're on your way back, but you surrender your license. How does that work? Do you have like a big formalized process, or is it like an email? Or
I don't remember it being this big process. Mm-hmm. I think, you know what it was? I think my attorney just got some paperwork from the real estate commission and I signed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Now, it was funny because I was planning on just letting the clients, letting the clients know like, hey, we're switching companies, and not really diving into the X's and O's of the real estate license. However, Spear had gotten my entire client list at a certain point. So when the license was revoked or surrendered, she sent an email to all of my clients. So it started this
like, hey, just so you know.
Yeah, okay. It started this spiral effect of like a lot of clients contacting us. And some clients were like, I want out. Period. Doesn't matter what you say or do. I want out.
Sure.
But like I said, 75% of them stayed. And some of them are still to this day happy clients, and I really love and respect those people that stuck with me in times that I probably wouldn't have stuck with that myself.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a heck of a hole to climb out of. So what is your I don't know, I guess with lack of a better way for saying it, way of paying bills now today? Like, what is the business today?
So I am still an owner of a real estate company. I have a percentage partner that the broker of that company is basically my business partner. I keep things very on the down low as it pertains to that, just because it's kind of their thing. You know, I have a business partner, I have 3 employees, and I have myself. So there's 5 of us total. And if you can believe this, during that process of cleaning things up, I got pretty damn good at the books. So I actually manage the books for the company.
Hey, that's good. Yeah.
And I manage them. I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back here, but because of the problems that I went through, I manage it with a level of detail that I couldn't have never even dreamed of 10 years ago. I mean, so much so to my 2025 taxes are already filed, and we're in February. This is the earliest I've ever filed my taxes. So I end up getting everything cleaned up, paying my outstanding taxes from 2016 to 2019. Obviously, all my taxes are paid up to this day. You were right on the money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of penalties.
That's quite a feat.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars of penalties. I mean, it was. So this is what I say. I mean, yeah, going back to the hedge fund, I was making a lot of money. I had a lot of money, but unfortunately, I lost a lot of it during that process. Luckily, I was able to recover some semblance of a way of life. I get a salary from that company. It doesn't make a ton of money, but it pays my bills. It gives me, I own my position.
That's great.
I own some real estate as well. That still to this day that company manages. And he manages the operations and I just manage the books and I kind of stay out of the weeds.
Heck yeah.
I'm one of those. Yeah.
Well, eventually you realize, like, once you get the bill collectors at bay, that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
Past that, it seems like you get in this frame of mind where nothing is ever good enough if you just go by what's in your bank account or what you're, and eventually you decided to have some different career goals, which led you to West Virginia and to kind of start doing content, which I definitely want to get into. I'll kind of walk through what happened with us.
Can I use the restroom before we get
there? Yeah. This is a good time for a bathroom break. All right, quick break and we're back. So I'll kind of set this up for everyone. I think they got a really good backstory on your mind frame and what's going on here. And
appreciate you letting me do that, by the way.
Yeah, no. This is great, dude. I think conversations like this need to happen, especially today.
Yeah.
Because what happens next, a lot of people just keep on letting it fester, and then it becomes something that's unproductive for everyone. And basically what happened was, so I told you all that I deleted a comment and kind of was just sitting back and watching the videos and the content and hoping for the best. So eventually I get a Facebook tag, and I cannot remember what video it was in, but it was somebody basically commented and said, we need to keep on.
West Virginia's outside our problem.
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah. Which is so funny that this is the conversation that we'll have. But yeah, so you do a video about that. And someone said, something about, people need to know this, something about speaking the truth. And then you tagged me, and this isn't verbatim, but it was something to the point of like, people need to know this, and I'm looking at you, Creepalachia. You need to start making people uncomfortable.
Well, I don't know if it was that.
I think it was. I think it was something like that.
I don't know if it was that forward. I think I said someone's going to need to take up the mantle. I'm looking at you, Creepalachia.
Something like that. It was something to that extent. And I was like, oh crap. So
keep in mind, I hadn't really watched a ton of your content.
Right.
So
we've done like, if I've met anyone that's watched every video we've done, I really got to check on them, because we've done like 1,200 videos in a year. But at the same time, there is like, we have a different approach.
It wasn't fair to you though.
No.
Like it genuinely was not a fair comment.
And at the same time, I do some unfair things too. So
yeah, like
this is good to lay out. But like, my approach is essentially like, I will talk about hard things, but I don't know if diplomatic's the word. I don't know. Sometimes, like, I'll go hard if someone's a scammer, if someone's murdered somebody, if someone's done these different things. When it comes to the problems of West Virginia, it's really hard because everyone that's in power is technically who can create the change, and there are a lot of like-minded folks. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm going to try and educate someone and not really talk about my firm belief system, which I broke here recently. We'll talk about that too. But I'll kind of just educate people. Like I'll share stories of history and talk about how coal towns got this way and different things like that.
I think there's a massive need for that too.
I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah. But there's also a need for like you'll go up in a council meeting, which I've never had the ability to do this type of stuff, but you'll go up in a council meeting and you'll just film like everybody and document, and you'll ask hard questions. But also you've had some really good interviews with like politicians where you ask them good questions that people need. All that stuff's so important because they get isolated on an island and people need to know who these people are, what they believe, all of that. So there's room for both of it, but that's kind of our differences. And then, so I took that and I said, well, let me take this to TikTok DM. So I go to TikTok and then I send you a message that's basically, this isn't for verbatim again, but basically like, hey, I don't know why you need to call me out. I honestly, I looked into your backstory as a landlord. I'm kind of unsure of what your goals are. So it was more or less saying,
totally reasonable.
Don't do that.
Yeah, totally
I don't trust you. Essentially is what it was saying.
Hey, you are a West Virginia boy.
But the crappy part was, then I got on Facebook and I made a comment and we were kind of squashing like, hey, I'm good over here. We're doing a lot. You keep doing your thing. You're the political guy. And then, good luck. And then you commented back to me and said, no call out. And we kind of squashed it. But then you look at the TikTok DM. And then you screenshot it. And call me out again on Facebook. And then we kind of, it escalated, lack of a better word. So it was saying, like essentially you said, I don't like this kind of energy. I don't have anything to hide. Basically a lot of the stuff you told me today. But it's kind of like we're both entering attack mode. So then I'm like, okay, so you've made this public. I sent that via DM. We could have had a phone call. Now we're going back and forth at each other and it's really not going to do anyone any good. And we kind of slowly, not really slowly, it's pretty quickly.
It was.
We walked back into, okay, well, let's have a podcast. So
it was your idea.
More or less. I called, I gave you my number. You called me. And then we talked on the phone for a while and I invited you to be on the podcast because it's the least I could do because the way I went at it was I got a little hot-headed quick too. So
we're prideful men, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you put a lot into your work and to have somebody from the outside call you out on that. You've been in West Virginia your whole life. You've been creating West Virginia 3-4 times as long as I have. So I get your perspective. Completely.
Well, and at the same time, I get yours too. Like you're trying to do the right thing. Also, you want to grow a brand and you want to do this, and we'll talk about that too. But yeah, it's kind of like divide and conquer. A lot of these smaller communities have not been able to have this conversation early. And they have turned into tribes. And that's going to keep anything good from occurring because, like it or not, we all got to work together to fix these communities. And it creates a whole big problem.
And I see that a lot. And the whole time I was thinking, this isn't what we need. Like West Virginia does not need me and Creepalachia going at it. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt like we were both doing good work in our lane. And I just felt like we didn't need to be at odds. And if we ended up being at odds permanently, I felt like that would just be the worst thing for West Virginia. Not the worst thing possible, but a very bad thing for West Virginia.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like I said, I will think about things for hours and hours and hours. And it was one of those things of like, man, I got so much that I'm already beefing on and thinking about. Like, I really don't want to do this.
I know.
So thankfully we, cooler heads prevailed. And here we are. But it's important for people to know that like we can still talk. We can still figure things out. But at the same time, I kind of suggested like, well, basically, if I know West Virginians all are cautious, I can promise you that there's other people that have those same questions. So why don't we get on and talk about them? And I think anyone listening can really see how it unfolded and how things occurred. And it takes that negative headline out of it. It kind of it puts more of a story to it, an important story. Now, it's your experience. It's more than a story.
Yeah,
but
I've always been one of the people that have owned my problems. You know, because I was very religious very early on. You know, we had things in my head of you can't have sex before marriage. So I ended up rushing into marriage with a woman that I should have never married. Frankly, I didn't have any experience. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know who I liked. I didn't know what kind of woman would be a good compliment to me. And I ended up marrying somebody that was not a good compliment to me just because it was like this religious thing to do. But the facts are is I was a grown man. I made my decisions. And at the end of the day, I don't blame anyone for that. You know, and the same thing with like the real estate career. I sent out, you know, what happened the day it happened. You know, you're on the back of the bulletin in real estate. You know, the back of the bulletin for anyone in the real estate business understands that that's where the disciplinary actions are. So I was on there. You know, it was very vague, a very vague reason as to why I surrendered my license. And I just put a Facebook post out there like, back in the day, like when I first started this thing, I basically told you exactly what I told you just now, you know, the last hour or whatever. It was a recap of what I just told you. Grew too fast, built systems in place, didn't have the priorities in place, and ended up here. You know what I'm saying?
Do you let things like that eat at you? Like, do you feel disappointed, or are you the type that can kind of look over that stuff and move on?
I mean, I lost years of my life to stress during that season. Like, that was not a season that I just willy-nilly got through. I mean, it was the hardest season of my life by a long shot. I mean, every day you're on the phone with an attorney, you're on the phone with your CPA, you're on the phone with people trying to fix this mess that you created. I mean, you know, you got angry clients, you got all this stuff. At a certain point, the hedge fund that I was talking about left. I mean, it was a lot. But I don't let it define me. I know that sounds cheesy, but it is what it is. I mean, I felt like I was given an opportunity that many people will never get, so they don't know what they would have done in this situation. I think, you know, because I was such a big entrepreneur, I ended up making decisions without thinking, you know, and I was just young and dumb. I mean, I guess I just gave myself that pass, and not because I felt like I paid my dues. Like I stressed about it. I ended up cleaning things up. I ended up doing things better today. And I just felt like that was young and dumb. And I think every now and then you can just give yourself that pass. I think if I was still doing those things today, it would be a little bit of a different story. I wouldn't be allowed to get that pass at 35 years old. But no, I don't let it hold me down, man. I mean,
that's good.
I don't know. I can't.
I let weight pile up on me, and I'm just like, but
yeah.
It's important to talk about that. And listen, I'm nobody. Like I told you, I was like, you don't have to explain yourself to me. I just think personally, it would be good for us to have a conversation if you're planning on doing this for a while in West Virginia, because eventually it'll come up. I want to talk about, like, how did you find a love for content development? How did that first fire up?
So after after my license was surrendered, I started taking a little bit of a backseat in my company, you know, and it was a different experience rather than being the head of the company and kind of I am the head on paper, but rather than being the head, you know, the face of the company, I had somebody else doing a lot of the decisions, talking to a lot of the clients, talking to the tenants and things like that. So, you know, because I'm not licensed, I can't do certain things. I can't deal with a lot of certain things that I used to. So I had to find other passions in life. You know, that was like my big passion for the longest time, was owning and operating a business.
And I'm assuming you do jujitsu?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the passion during the pandemic, you know. So I guess before my license was surrendered, I needed to find new passions, and I decided to start training kickboxing. Actually, was my original Muay Thai was my original martial art.
Oh, cool. Where do you roll in Parkersburg?
In Parkersburg,
or where you stay? Like, where are you staying?
I stay all over.
Okay.
Yeah. There's gyms all over.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, right here.
I know there's a few places. There's
Arte Suave.
Yeah,
y'all got to check out Arte Suave. Chris, this one's for you, baby. But
I've had David Shim in here. Have you met him? The 68-year-old radiologist that goes down there.
They call him Doc?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, that has to be him. He's about late 60s.
Yeah, he just got his black belt.
Yeah, he's a bad dude, man.
Yep.
He's telling me all the injuries he's had.
Yeah,
he came on the show.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Nice.
We talked about cancer for an hour.
Wow. They call him Doc.
Yep.
Good guy.
Yep. So, and sorry, your inspiration for storytelling.
Yeah. So I start training, you know, Muay Thai during the pandemic and get a real passion for it. I branch out a couple months later into jujitsu, and start training a full repertoire of martial arts, boxing, Muay Thai, and jujitsu. And just to really simplify that story, that's how that happened. And it starts to change me as a human. Like martial arts really started to change me. Like that's really when my change started happening. I was just about turning 30 and I realized that I just made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'd done a lot of things. I've been my own worst enemy. I needed to get out of my own way in life because even though I was young, dumb, ambitious, all of these things, I mean, I was a lot, man. You know what I mean?
Was it like an ego thing? Or?
I said earlier that I wasn't full of myself. And I guess in a lot of ways I wasn't in the traditional sense, but I really did have a big ego. And I think when you start training martial arts, you really realize how much of an ego you have because you realize how helpless you are against somebody that could literally kill you with their hands. I mean, it's a humbling experience when you start to feel that, martial arts humbles you so radically. And I would say that was the moment where I really started to change, kind of that big head that I had, that untouchable spirit that I had really started to be broken down. And jujitsu more so, I would say, was the catalyst for that. Just a quick synopsis for anyone listening. Jujitsu is the grappling component of mixed martial arts. A lot of people think UFC is a sport. UFC is the organization, just like basketball is the sport to the NBA. MMA is the sport to UFC. A lot of people just don't really understand that. And inside of mixed martial arts, MMA is all types of arts: boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, karate, all of this stuff. So I chose a few different arts inside of MMA. Muay Thai, which is like based out of Thailand. It's, kicks, elbows, knees, all of that. You can like clinch, but you can't grapple and go to the ground, like and stay on the ground. You got boxing, which is just your hands. And then you have jiu-jitsu, which is no punching. It's all grappling. So it's the ground component of a fight.
Kind of like wrestling and chess mixed. Would you say that?
Okay. Wrestling is like the entry level. It's like, I mean, every jiu-jitsu fight starts on your feet. So wrestling is kind of where that starts. And then once it goes down to the ground, that's kind of where jiu-jitsu takes into play. So I start training pretty hard. It starts to become a very serious part of my life. And I remember during the pandemic seeing TikTok, and I think TikTok was like I remember the first day I ever saw TikTok. I was amazed. It was like very different experience than I think most people when they first viewed TikTok. It was like, wow, like the world that opened up to me when I saw it. I was just intrigued by the level of potential that platform had. But I didn't really have a finger on what it was. I smoked a lot of weed during that time. So I would get in these highs and like really start deeply looking at stuff.
Right.
And I remember being high one day and like really looking at it and being like, holy shit. But then the high wore off and I stopped thinking about it for like 6 months.
Sure.
And I remember I was at a kickboxing tournament. I was doing a lot of things, tournament related and jiu-jitsu and all that. That was really my sole focus. And I remember at a Muay Thai tournament, I got seriously concussed. It was like a really bad concussion. I ended up winning the fight. I ended up pushing through it and winning the fight, but I ended up getting a couple very bad concussions to where like things went black. I mean, I almost got knocked out, I would say. And I remember being at home the night of, and my head was just throbbing. It was like the worst pain I've ever felt in terms of my head. I'd never experienced pain like that. It was like, have you ever been concussed before?
I fell in high school. Like I jumped up and grabbed the rim and my finger got caught on the net.
Yeah.
Flew back, landed right on my head. I think that's the only time I've been concussed.
Yeah, it's a very interesting experience. And I don't think we understand brain chemistry anywhere near. I don't think anyone in the field will admit that. We don't understand brain chemistry anywhere near what we could. So I remember by that point, I was posting, like, if you go back and look at my Instagram, it'll give you a perfect snapshot of my journey. Obviously, there's everything still there. And like, you'll see very early on posts of my fighting career, quote unquote career. It was very minuscule in comparison to real fighters, but it was a challenge. And I like went to tournaments and all this stuff and had like real experiences.
Sure.
And I remember I knew that, I'd had that TikTok thing in my mind. I'd wanted to create content and I basically was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I guess I'll just start with what I do now. I'll start creating content with what I do, which is jujitsu and Muay Thai. So I started specifically going to tournaments and competing to obviously get better at these skills, but also to start post-producing some of them and like making content around them. And I remember I had done some content from that fight where I'd gotten concussed.
Right.
And I remember,
right after concussion. Oh, nice.
So I remember I'd done some content from that tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was a couple days post concussion.
Oh, okay.
And I remember laying on I posted it. I smoked a blunt, and I remember looking at this video, and it was like I had done something really stupid with it. Like I had, like my coach had come over and talked to me, and like I voiced over what was happening. Like he was like, you got to keep your head up. Like it was like a voiceover.
Oh, nice.
Like I went to the gym, got him on camera, like saying something, and I dubbed over the voice, and like we said some funny stuff, and like it was like this, like kind of this. It was kind of this satirical moment that I had where I turned B-roll of my fight where I'm sitting here and the coach is looking at me into like almost a movie. It was like this moment where I was like, wow. And I remember laying on my bed and thinking I could turn my life into a movie. Like literally, it was like this mind-blowing thing at the time.
Did you have any kind of, because it just sounds like creativity brewing and you figuring out like I can do kind of anything I want. Was you ever into the arts or anything?
Well, it's funny that you should say that. I never viewed myself as an artistic person ever.
Yeah, that's a cool entry level because a lot of people had something going on.
In fact, art was my least favorite subject in school. I hated it. But what I've learned was, number one, I feel like the concussion actually opened up some things in my head. As crazy as that sounds, like I said, we don't really understand brain chemistry and things like that. I feel like the concussion knocked some things loose in me. I really do.
Sure.
And I felt like this creativity opened up after that.
Knocked out your left lobe or whatever it is, wherever the creativity section is. That's great.
And it also creativity in general started broadening to me. I started realizing that creativity didn't necessarily have to be limited to an art class, painting, all of this stuff.
Sure.
And I was just like, wow, I could do this with anything. And I started like videoing some of my jujitsu practices and like doing the same thing. And I started videoing some of my jujitsu tournaments and like making little storylines in there of like me and a fighter and like kind of like making like little storylines. I don't know how to describe it any other way. And I remember the first time I videoed one of my jujitsu practices and did a voiceover, I was like, wow, like I can make voiceovers about anything. It doesn't have to be just jujitsu.
Sure.
So then I started doing mental health content. If you guys look at the history of my page, you'll see a significant amount of mental health content. This was during 2022, 2023, 2024.
Like inspirational stuff?
Mainly 2022 and 23. It was all voiceover content, but it was me doing something and discussing a mental health tip of the week. So my early videos were put your work down, where I basically reenacted my prior life where I was a workaholic, and I became like let's follow a day in the life of a workaholic. And I basically showed at 3 a.m. It was basically like walk through this, and all the while I'm narrating this thought about workaholism. And at the end, I tie it all together and say, this is the vicious cycle of a workaholic. If this is you, put down your work. Your mental health will thank you. That used to be my big tagline. Your mental health will thank you.
Right.
But what that season started doing was a few things. Number one, I started building real skills when it came to editing, storytelling, and just controlling the emotion towards an audience. When you watch a really good movie and you're feeling emotions, we don't really realize why we're feeling those emotions. We just feel them. We're seeing something on the screen, but every single thing you're hearing, seeing, feeling subconsciously it's all choreographed. It's all very carefully choreographed to make you feel a certain thing. That's what cinema is. Mm-hmm. Quentin Tarantino, what makes him such an incredible director is all those little details throughout an entire movie that add up to making you feel a certain thing.
Sure.
And I started really feeling that. If you look back at some of my early mental health content, it's actually very intense and it's like dark, it's very like deadpan. There's like a lot, and it's all voiceover. So nobody gets to see me talk. It was just all me doing stuff and me voicing over things. So I started building this little bit of a brand that way.
Mm-hmm.
I had built a pretty successful Instagram following pre anything travel, So I'd always, anytime anyone asked me why I was doing what I was doing, I'd always answered it very simply, or what my long-term goals were. I just always said I wanted to travel the world like Anthony Bourdain and post-document the process. Back in 2018, I had a girlfriend that was very instrumental in broadening my horizons. I wasn't very traveled. She brought some travel component to my life. She introduced me to Anthony Bourdain's work and things like that. And I started falling in love with his work, and I just loved the way that he would go into areas and regions and just listen, and he just was fascinating to me. A
legend.
And I really came to this conclusion that like, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I want to travel the world like Anthony Bourdain and post-produce my process, document my process, but like we talked about earlier, you have the goal and you have where you're at, you have to get there. Like if I would have showed up in West Virginia without the skill set built, things would have gone completely different. I wouldn't be standing here today.
Sure. Yeah. No, you hear you're developing your chops, kind of like you did with the real estate business. Like you're piling stuff on and learning and channeling it. I mean, and you described why everyone makes films. Like that's that feeling of portraying your vision on screen, like the sounds, the music, all of the things. So.
So I really started to learn how to put songs in certain places, how to edit them a certain way, how to cut a video to where it made like somebody feel something at moments. All of that I started learning through mental health content, and I branched into dating content. I really was getting really creative with it. And honestly, if I'm being honest, there was something pure about it. Those were almost some of my favorite days of content creation. And I know we're all nostalgic. We kind of look back at the good old days and stuff like that. I really just enjoyed the purity of those days. I felt like those were my peak creative years of just like
pure fun.
Yeah. And like creating things that weren't happening. Nobody was doing stuff like this before. Don't get me wrong. I love what I'm doing today, and it's just different.
Yeah. I mean, you allow goals to come in and then you start getting emotions involved, because when you start talking about these important subjects, then you get the stress of people getting pissed off and doing all these different. So it's a different thing. It's, arguably, I think, both are equally needed.
Yeah.
But West Virginia in particular, there's a lot of things that need to be talked about. So
speaking of West Virginia, kind of laser focus on that, because I know a lot of your audience obviously is Appalachian. Let's fast forward, okay, I go through a big season of partying in 2024, and I really I never had a season of partying. Let's just call it what it is, so I go at it just like I go at everything else in my life, go hard at it. And my content starts to suffer because of it. I built this pretty decent brand. I had a pretty decent following. And then my content just started, my audience starts dwindling away in a lot of ways.
Sure.
I think I went from 138,000 followers on Instagram to 109,000 just by losing people through, and not creating any content. I think in 2024, I created like 8 or 9 videos, maybe 13 videos, and like all of them were towards the end of the year. So I was like basically just partying, enjoying myself, and like going at it, living like there was no tomorrow.
Letting some steam off, as they say.
I had a lot of steam to let off.
Right.
Yeah. And,
well, you go so long, you're under the gun all these years, I could imagine that it builds up.
It started to get a little out of control. Mm-hmm. I never drank by myself, but I would always be coming up with an excuse to drink and going out 3-4 days a week, getting shit-faced every single time. I mean, a night out with my friends would be 20 drinks, cocaine, all this stuff.
So the good part about me, 2 beers and I'm like on the table with my shirt off. I've always been a cheap drunk, but yeah. So you done like hard, like you was on cocaine for a little while.
I mean, yeah. And everybody basically in the party scene and where I was at in Charlotte, it was just like everywhere. I understand cocaine is not as like prevalent here in West Virginia from what I hear, but back in Charlotte, like it is very prevalent. I mean,
Well, every region has their own stuff.
It was the party drug, and it became a marriage. Alcohol and cocaine, like, and it was just this thing that I started doing as part of my cycle. But that started really catching up to me, and I started having some really like intense days of like 18 hours straight partying, you know, fun nights with my friends turned into day drinking with my friends, and then late mornings into, so we're talking, like I said, 18 straight hours of partying, all doing cocaine throughout their mix. I mean, it was a mess. I mean, it really was becoming a big mess. I ended up in the hospital 2 times. The first time I was just like, okay, I can dial it back a little bit, you know, not drink as many vodka Red Bulls, not do as much cocaine. Like I can just do cocaine every hour, a little bit here and there, and like not have as much negative impacts. Well, then it happened again. I mean, it really, I ended up in the hospital again. And I just remember the doctor leveling with me, like, this is becoming a problem. You like,
was it like alcohol poisoning, or why would?
I think what it was it was not alcohol poisoning. I think what it was a honestly, anxiety attack.
Okay.
You know, because cocaine is obviously not great for your anxiety. And I was also doing like ketamine and stuff like that at times, although that wasn't everything I was doing. And I just think I had like major panic attacks.
Sure.
That like began to like manipulate my heart into like going crazy. And I remember like calling that second time, I remember calling the ambulance, and the firefighters came, and my heart rate was like 180 beats per minute. It wasn't working out. This was like stimulated, and that's not good. That's not a great heartbeat. You know what I'm saying? I was very much at risk for a heart attack. And, you know, one time it happens. Okay, it happens. It was a fluke. 2 times it happens. Then it becomes a pattern, you know, and it was starting to become a pattern. I wasn't starting to like who I was. Don't get me wrong, the party life had some good things about it. I mean, I became very well socially. I started learning to talk to people. I'd been homeschooled for a lot of years. I'd went to school for high school, but I was homeschooled for a lot of my life. Very religious, like I said, for a good part of it, you know. And I just was sheltered in a lot of ways. And because of that, I was a little bit of an awkward dude. I mean, I'll always probably still have a little bit of that if I'm being honest, but I was more so back then.
Don't seem that way to me. But, I mean, if it helps.
I mean, yeah, but, you know, and luckily I've kind of learned how to like not be that way, just to be a normal person. Like, you know, kind of being like shock value became my identity and in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, like that COVID thing was like shock value. And I kind of loved that, you know, and I don't love shock value as much anymore. I kind of just like being in my own world and doing my work correctly and just kind of like, but, so I ended up in the hospital the second time. The doctor just leveled with me. This is becoming a problem. Like, and I was like, I don't know what to do. My friends, like finding a girl, all of this stuff is tied to my party life. She's like, well, you might need to get good new friends. I was like, yeah. And that like opened up in my head. There are people out here that like don't do this. Like I can find a whole group of people that I don't need to necessarily party with to enjoy and have a good time. I can like find a girlfriend and not have to be, you know, inebriated all the time.
Sure.
So like I said, there were some good things that came from it. It taught me how to approach women. I mean, some of these basic skills that I think every man should have, you know, being able to walk up to a group of people with confidence and you know, and hold a conversation and not be weird, you know, and all this stuff.
Well, you're using it now.
Yeah, exactly. But it came to full circle to where it was pushing too far. So I ended up going sober, completely sober, still sober to this day. If anyone wants to drink, have more power to you. I am not here to police anybody's life, but just for me, it wasn't working for me.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that, you know, but at the end of the day, if somebody wants to enjoy themselves, you know, I still hang out with people that drink. It's not a big deal to me. I just think it was a problem for me. And I think it's a problem for a lot of people. They don't want to admit it, but that's neither here nor there. I can't live my life worrying about other people and the decisions they make.
Sure. Well, it's good that you have that empathy of knowing what that feels like, because you know, of course, I believe addiction is everywhere and in places that we don't realize it necessarily. But Appalachia has a stigma for addiction in these communities. Yeah. And I always try to hold empathy on talking to someone about it, because you know, we just don't know. I've never personally had that kind of addiction, but I've had other addictions. Right. So I just kind of put myself in their shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like on paper, I was very normal. I was just like enjoying myself with my friends. There was nothing abnormal. In fact, in my friend group, I was actually one of the more controlled people. I mean, I feel like there was people in my friend group going even harder. But I just kind of learned that normal was very unhealthy. And I do think there is a lot of problems associated with that party life. I think it robs people of true life. I mean, if it wasn't for giving that up, I wouldn't have traveled. I mean, I am stressed for sure today, but I mean, this is my passion. I love it. This like sets me on fire every day. I couldn't imagine life without this. And to think I was sacrificing that on the altar of partying is just wild. But, you know, so the truth was I had that period where I stopped kind of creating content. I got back at it really end of 2024, beginning of 2025. So around this time last year, I started really going at it. I posted 40 straight days or something like that. And that was like a big deal for me.
So is that your schedule, like one video a day or kind of
I don't really have a schedule.
Really? Okay.
I'd love to post every day, multiple times a day. The way my content works, I'm starting to get a little more fluid with it to where I can be a little more flexible, but it is just kind of like as it happens. And again, I wish it was a little different than that.
I mean, it's work and it's hard, man.
It is.
This is it's physically draining.
Yeah.
To think of like, because eventually you start thinking like, what do people want to? What do they need to see? What do they want to see?
Yep.
And then just thinking of those ideas and churning every day is physically exhausting. So I get it.
At some point, I'd gone out to LA. 2022, 2023, kind of in the height of my mental health content. I'd gone to LA. I'd really enjoyed myself. I was traveling and I really felt like this, oh God, I can breathe. You know, for personal reasons, I had to go back to Charlotte and I kind of was like, had that stripped away. And like, I was enjoying it, making the most of it, but I wasn't like set alive like I was in LA. And then I just realized it wasn't LA as much as it was just traveling. It was that idea that I could just like do something new every day, be on the road and really just like have this life in front of me that was like wide open. That was what was setting me on fire. So to get it to the West Virginia topic, you know, I'd seen Anthony Bourdain. Obviously, anybody that knows him knows West Virginia was one of his key episodes.
Won an Emmy.
Do you want to say anything about that? I know you have.
So my family was actually featured in it. And I actually got to work on the show too. The director, Mo Fallon, is actually a friend of mine now. And it was witnessing one of the purest forms of storytelling, them just making it. It was witnessing the most purest form of storytelling I've ever seen. And it's nothing you see on camera on those shows is manufactured. The only thing that's manufactured is they're like, well, we're going to have dinner here. And then everyone sets up the lights and waits on Anthony for like 3 hours. Mm-hmm. That's the only manufactured part about it. As soon as he walks in, there's this warmth that enters the room and then everyone's just talking. And that's literally all it is. Yeah. So it was very rewarding time in my life for sure. Yeah. And he's a big idol of mine on how that's the best story of my home that's ever been told.
Don't lie. Don't be humble. You had a line in the show.
Well, I had one line. I can't remember. There's a lot. I think it's something like, there's a lot of people here doing good that you just don't hear about. Something like that. And my hair was terrible. But yeah, our family got to sit down and eat with them. And
I know exactly where the house is.
It was crazy.
Right there in Welch, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right there in Welch. Yep. And my in-laws run a food bank down there. Yep. So volunteerism and also protecting the vulnerable has always been a huge part of my storytelling approach. Yep. And it's cool to know that like that kind of inspired you to is that kind of mainly what made you say, let me try West Virginia? It's a state over. Let me go over here and see what's up.
Yeah, so there was 2 episodes that really stuck out to me in his series. And I really focused more domestically when I've since started watching some of his international work and it's actually just as good.
Oh, it's all perfect.
But, you know, I felt like domestic was like more what I needed to focus on initially. So the 2 episodes that really stuck out to me was West Virginia and Mississippi. So there you go. The two bottom of the bottom of the totem pole in terms of a lot of the statistics. You know what I'm saying? But, you know,
if you're not, or it's, but we're the big fish in the little pond of poverty. Yeah, but yeah, that's important because going into these places, how do you even approach that? And my answer is always exactly what Parts Unknown did is how you approach it. Yeah. But yeah, so you watched those 2 and you're like, oh,
it was logistics. It was like pure logistics. So I remember going out to Oregon about April of last year, and I saw your Goonies poster in there.
Lord,
it was filmed up there.
I haven't been to the house, but
I can't remember the city's name. Was it the hell is the name of the city that was filmed in?
I cannot remember. I knew it was in Oregon, but I can't remember.
Astoria.
Okay, yeah.
Astoria. So I spent a night in Astoria, and I remember I'd gone there I was doing a lot of establishment reviews at the time. So I was in Bend, Oregon to do one at the last Blockbuster.
Mhm.
All right. And I'd taken a couple days and just kind of, I had a flight. So it wasn't like a full freeness, but I'd taken a couple days and just drove and just figured things out and just explored Oregon a little bit. And I ended up in Astoria, which is where Goonies was filmed. And I remember like walking into the hotel, it was like 11 o'clock at night. And the woman was talking about getting shipwrecked in Astoria. It was basically this idea that I guess like back in the day, they would like drug you and like throw you on a boat and like you'd wake up and you were in like basically in a place you didn't even.
Dude, that's my favorite thing is people think that today is hard.
Yeah.
Like, dude, they had another thing that they think Edgar Allan Poe died of, where they just basically drug you and change your clothes and make you vote over and over again.
Wow.
It's called, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's stuff that used to be crazy.
Right. But I just remember thinking, wow. Like, and I was pretty big into creating content at that point.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, man, I could tell that story. So, but I didn't. But I just remember thinking like I could come into these areas and like tell stories and like talk about this stuff. And so I just remember being in Oregon and thinking, man, this world is a scam. Like it really just hit me that like, if I'm not doing what I want to do in my life, what am I doing? And I just remember that trip, like every little step of the way, I was just getting nickel and dime to the nth degree, from my hotel to my car to everything. And I was just like, man, this world is a scam. Like this like people like work their asses off in their life for 2 weeks vacation. And then they get nickel and dimed on their 2 weeks vacation. It's insane.
Yep.
And I remember making that decision. I'm going to buy a bed for my Tesla. I found I had a Tesla at the time. I have a Tesla, and I was like, I'm going to buy a bed for my Tesla and I'm going to camp. I'm going to camp in my Tesla and I'm going to travel. And I'm going to start in West Virginia. West Virginia was very much logistics at first. I didn't have a passion for West Virginia beyond just the Anthony Bourdain episode. I'd driven through it extensively, not extensively. I've driven through it a lot of times. Cause I grew up in Michigan, lived in North Carolina, and drive to Michigan, North Carolina, and you have to drive through basically the 77 route all throughout West Virginia all the time.
Lord, yeah.
So I remember thinking I knew the place.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, I know West Virginia. As crazy as it sounds, I was like, let me spend 10 days here, kind of just like cover some cool stuff, and then move on to the next place. I was planning on going to like New Jersey or some other places. And then just very early on, actually, like literally the first day when I got off the interstate in Beckley to the Sheets in Mount Hope to charge my Tesla, I remember feeling like a whirlwind. I don't know how to describe it. I was like, wow, like this world exists here with its own culture. And I remember going to Crossroads Mall in Mount Hope, and people were like looking me in the eyes and smiling at me,
waving.
Yeah, it was like this. And I was like, and then I remember getting on the interstate and I felt like I was in the vortex of like what I thought I knew West Virginia was. And every time I got off of interstate, I would like actually start seeing it for what it was. Like,
what were your preconceived notions?
Well,
I'm just curious.
I'd known enough about Anthony Bourdain's work to know that it probably wasn't going to be like I thought it was. Mm-hmm. A lot of people had warned me, be careful in West Virginia, etc. And I just knew that it probably wasn't going to be like it. Like, I can't say I had any I don't really know what my preconceived notions were. I don't know if I even looked into it that deeply. I think I just, like I said, I planned on being here for 10 days.
Right.
I think I just thought I knew what it was like. I really thought because I traveled the Turnpike that I knew West Virginia.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Which is insane.
Yeah. And you figured out the roads generally suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
I mean,
it's
77 is a little rough.
It's insane to think that because you travel through that, a place.
Sure.
And I remember I was charging my Tesla, walking out of Crossroads Mall, and I was walking across the street to the charging station, and this cop looked at me and was like, look like this, like, come here. And I was very much on guard at the time because in Charlotte's a pretty big city. We don't really like interact like that. And
sure.
If the cops like calling you over, there's usually a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying Charlotte PD is like corrupt or aren't nice, but it's a big city and it has big city vibes, and we just don't do that in big cities.
Sure.
And I remember coming over and I was like, can I help you? Like really like standoffish. And he's like, I just want to see your tattoos, man. Like, that was it. He just like literally wanted to look at my tattoos.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was the encounter. And I just remember thinking this is crazy.
Right.
You know, and I went to the gym that night, Oak Hill, and there was like people talking, and like there's like a community there. And I was just like, wow, like all of these things that are now normal to me because I've been here for so long were eye-opening to me, you know, the culture of West Virginia. And I started really falling in love with it. You know, I really did. I started really falling in love with the people here.
What was the date that you first arrived?
Probably like May 22nd, 2025.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's wow.
Yeah, that 8 months ago. And you know, I created content at first. Thurmond was my first place that I made a video in, and you know, I started like really just like I realized that this was like an expansive region. You know, I wasn't going to hit on anything West Virginia related in like a short period of time. I knew that it was going to be like a significant time investment. And because if I wanted to do it right, you know, Anthony Bourdain was here for what, 6 days, 7 days?
Yeah, the team, they did pre-production for a few weeks, but he was just here for about a week. Yeah.
Which is what it was. You know,
it seemed like they shot maybe 10 days. I can't remember the exact number, but
yeah. And like, I respect that. He had other places to be. He had a massive place to travel and all of that. But the truth is, you still can only immerse yourself in a place for 10 days. You can only immerse yourself so much in a place for 10 days.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm sure he was probably ready to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure of that, but I mean, he's a busy dude.
He had other things to go. His whole MO was get a piece of this places. And
yeah. And he had such a good team that did all of this groundwork that really felt what this was, and then they would pass that along. And he's just a smart dude, but he's also a tortured soul. I know, obviously, but yeah. So and credit to you, compliment. Somehow you've been able to find all of these important issues that West Virginians know about, like when you hear about these water issues and these certain things going on, it's like, these are things I've known about. Mm-hmm. And somehow you were able to immerse yourself to the point to where you would find these things out and relay them. So that's a really good skill.
But to be honest, I started becoming very acutely aware of West Virginia's reputation, the negative reputation that the outside world has towards West Virginia very early on by talking to locals. And I started really seeing that was not the way that things were. Obviously, every stereotype exists for a reason, but to assume that every West Virginian is, you know, I always say in California, people view West Virginia from the Whitakers and the Whites. And like, bless their hearts, they are a part of West Virginia and they always will be. And there's people like that. But let's be real, that is not the vast majority of West Virginia.
And also, it's way more complicated because there are... First off, we see these people in these little 20-minute segments, and then we automatically decide that's who that person is. And it's not the case with anyone out there at all. And it's the same with the Whitaker family and the White family is we see these certain points in their life that are, you know, impulsive, or it's essentially like we're watching our bad decisions on tape.
Yep.
Which you know, the one interview you can kind of relate to how that can be misconstrued. Yeah. And I always know deep down there is way more, even like the worst possible topic you can cover. Yeah. There's way more to the story than just that. Mm-hmm. But I understand why people look at it too, because we're very topical. We're like, okay, well, that's my opinion. And, you know, I'm going to call them the inbred family. Like the Whitakers to me is probably the most intense and detailed character assassination to ever exist.
Couldn't agree more.
On video.
Yeah.
And
I could not agree more. It's actually tragic.
Yeah, it's very tragic. And then eventually you have, you know, you start attracting these people that want to take advantage of that. Right. And then, you know, some of them have broke the law. So
to me, they're the lowest of well, no, I don't want to say lowest. To me, they are the most vulnerable of our society. And I think that is the definition of poverty porn. somebody said it to me, and I agree with it 100%. When you put your most vulnerable in your society on camera, I think that's poverty porn.
Vulnerable is the term, because there's so much that we didn't see to get to this point. There's things that we don't see off camera. There's all kinds of variables that go into this, and a typical person is going to take it at topical value and just move on, because that's media in general. We just trying to get clicks, trying to do that. And then they're probably, like, I kind of describe the Whitakers as the most successful unpaid CEOs to ever exist, because they have built, I think if you was to add up all of their image into one channel, it'd probably be top 10, at least top 25 YouTube creators.
Unbelievable.
Out there. And imagine what that would do to their life if they were able to manage that.
Right.
And there's certain hurdles that they just can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's just, it's so complicated. But at the same time, you handle these issues really well. And
I try to.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance.
You do a good job. Now, I'll describe something I could never do, which I talked about earlier about filming the council meeting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kind of, what is your approach when it comes to confrontational media, we'll call it, like stories like that?
Well, let me be clear. All right. I want to make this very clear. I am not the confrontational guy. Like, that's not going to be my MO. I think I've stumbled into this niche recently of like kind of being that, and I've said this on social media over the last 2 months. I posted a lot of stuff that have gone pretty viral. My favorite video of all of that was when I went to Coalwood, West Virginia in McDowell County on a Sunday afternoon, and I met a coal miner, and he took me around and showed me Coalwood, and like just literally told me about his home and like how it was when he was a kid and all of that.
Sure.
It's my favorite video. Like, and it's the one that brought me the most joy. It's the one that I felt most fulfilled doing. And I just loved listening to him talk about his childhood and like looking at this pool that's like desolate and what do you call it? Like, falling apart, and just like reminiscing about, man, there used to be kids all over here riding bikes, and now it's a ghost town, 300 people living here or whatever. So like, that is always going to be my passion. When I came to West Virginia, I felt like I needed to just talk about the good here, because there is so much good in West Virginia, and I think so little of it gets talked about. So that was it. And I think I even went a little to the extreme where it was just all kumbaya, every single thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And like, even more so, like, it was just like good. But I also felt like, okay, number one, I needed to represent these people who have never been represented in this light, or very rarely been represented to this light, at least from the outside.
Yeah.
There's been people like you've been representing them correctly on the inside, but I think outsiders have not represented them correctly. So I needed to show this off. I also needed to like earn my stripes. Like, I didn't want to talk about things that I wasn't like privy to, and I just needed to like cautiously move my way into things that are quote unquote confrontational. But I think Jim Justice was like the first one. Well, actually, the first video I ever did calling out anything negative in West Virginia was in July, and it was in the White Sulphur Springs during my Greenbrier Valley tour. And I had gone to a place called the Schoolhouse, which was a hotel about a mile away from the Greenbrier.
Sure.
And it was beautifully done. It was well done. I talked to the owners, I talked to the management and all of that. And it was like really well done. It was like a nice compliment to the Greenbrier. And I felt like that was something that was lacking in my travels thus far, when I'd went to Point Pleasant and gone to the Mothman Museum, when I'd gone to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston. I felt like they had really good attractions, but not a lot of support around the attractions to basically support that. There wasn't a lot of restaurants, bars, anything, hotels. There wasn't a lot of that in a lot of these areas where there was big tourist attractions.
Sure.
So I made a video called West Virginia's Tourism Problem. And that was the crux of it, was basically West Virginia has all these touristic items, but we need more support from the locals and out-of-state investment to support these tourism items. Well, it became very controversial in ways that I didn't expect, because at the time I didn't really think tourism was like this controversial item. Now I realize that tourism is a very controversial topic. I just felt like there was no such thing as bad tourism, which was an improper opinion. There's definitely such thing as bad tourism. but there's also such thing as good tourism. And I learned that a lot of West Virginians, like, sure, welcome tourism through and through, but there's a lot of them that don't want it. They don't want any tourism. They don't want any growth. They don't want any of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that was my first time ever calling anything out negative. And then I think the second video I did was West Virginia's gym justice problem, which was on the lawn of the Greenbrier. This was the first time I did anything political in West Virginia, where I basically talked, mind you, it was a 2-part thing. And I talked about the Greenbrier and its importance to West Virginia.
Right.
And I think it's a beautiful part of West Virginia. But then I talked about the gym justice side of things. And, we don't have to go into it. We all know what gym justice is about in terms of what, some of the controversy that surrounded him with his unpaid taxes and all of that.
Sure.
I don't know where all that stands. I don't know. I just felt like he needed to be a better role model, as like when an outsider comes in and, ransacks your land. Okay, it's just an outsider. But like when an insider, somebody that's born and raised here, isn't paying their taxes or like having controversy around paying their vendors, then it's like, okay, I just hold you to a higher standard. So that was kind of my first time that I'd ever called out anything inside the system of West Virginia.
And it's fair. I mean, and it's fair. Like, there's been many stories produced by well-credentialed organizations that go into this stuff. So it's a fair criticism, and a lot of West Virginians agree, for sure.
It was 7 months into my journey before I made that video, though. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I wasn't rushing to the gun with it. Then I went to Parkersburg and went to tell a really good story of that place. And I think I ended up telling a really good story of Parkersburg, which is a great city. It's an awesome city with mobilized people and passion that I haven't seen anywhere else in West Virginia, is how I described it. It's a very unique passion. You get obviously a certain level of passion in the coal fields and stuff like that. But when you start going into Parkersburg, it's just a little bit of a different passion. All right. And it was the first time I ever turned my camera around and just talked to it. Everything else prior to that point was very scripted, and admittedly so scripted. I would go into these places, I'd film a bunch of B-roll, and then I would very carefully curate a script around it and carefully curate every single point around that.
Right.
This was the first time I turned the camera around and started just talking to it on the side of the road, and just very spitballing it, so to speak. And like, for something that I thought was going to be a filler, it ended up being one of my biggest videos. And I was like, what? And actually, you were the one that inspired me a lot, because I was like, I have to figure out a way to create more content. And I just felt like you were a little looser with your content than me. And I mean that in the highest compliment. Like, you were very free with it,
Yeah. It's a medium that is constantly growing. Like, sometimes I think you can overproduce things, and I think people are kind of trying to find that authenticity, if that makes sense.
My production is something I'll never give up. I'll never give up scripting. I'll never give up storytelling.
And you do, definitely don't.
Yeah, because I feel like that's my art. That is where I can produce.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And be that artist, and that we were talking about earlier. But there is another level to it when I'm spending 60 hours on a video and it gets 2,200 likes. And then I see someone else, not even you, but someone like other people creating content that is just like, hey, what's up? Here, I'm over here. It takes 30 seconds and they get 4,000 likes. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to incorporate some of this looser style content where I'm just kind of like, so I start doing that. And, with that becomes a little less quality control, or a little less, not quality control, but a little so I start giving the mic to other people to start talking and things like that. And it starts broadening a little bit. It gets a little less out of my control, which is fine. But it's just different. It's a different style of content that I'd never done before. And then, so I'd gone to Parkersburg. You can see it in my first Parkersburg video, like my evolution of that state, of that city. I start talking about how I might pop through a council meeting, we'll see. I don't really want to do political stuff. I don't really want to get into, I like having these conversations out loud, in real time. And then I end up going to I end up going to City Hall, and the workers there feel very gatekeepy. That's the best way to say it. They were just very much like, oh no, we're so busy. No, you can't talk to the mayor. All of this stuff. Sorry, the mayor's busy, blah, 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 blah. And at this point, I had been used to small town mayors driving me around in their car in places like Montgomery, Mount Hope, some of these places, and just driving me around their car and telling me about their communities. And it was very personal. And to have a bigger city just shut me out completely was just kind of interesting to me. And I even said on camera, they felt gatekeepy but I don't know. I'm still going to I might go to a meeting and check it out.
Sure.
I go to the meeting and I realize they're like deep in the middle of a sanitation debate as to whether or not sanitation is going to be privatized. That's like what I walk into the middle of. It's like towards the tail end of a sanitation discussion in their community that's been going on for months. I know nothing about it.
Right.
And I just sit in the back row or middle row, or whatever. And I just notice like, why people are going up to the front and talking. And the mayor is like literally not looking at anyone like the entire time. He's doing everything but looking at people who are speaking. And it just becomes this weird observation that I have. And I see a lot of passionate people go up to the front, talk, and I'm just like, okay. So I talked to these people afterwards and I'm like, what is going on? Why isn't the mayor looking at anybody? Oh, he always does that. He never looks at anybody. Like,
right.
We hate him, blah, blah, blah. And listen, man, who likes let's be real. It's easy to hate on politicians. It really is.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a scapegoat.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. A lot of times. And some of them are jackasses.
Some of them are.
Yeah. Some of
yeah. But it's really easy to just be like, I hate that guy, without like going through,
sure.
All the X's and O's of it.
Yeah. I
decided to stay for a little bit, go next week. And at the next meeting, the president of the council, Mike Reynolds, has his last meeting as president. He's still going to be on council, but it's his last meeting as president. And in his last meeting, he decides to attempt to throw out a man named Brian Hayden, who he felt was being boisterous, slanderous towards the council and all of that. Mind you, I've seen Brian speak twice at this point. I've met with Brian offline prior to this meeting, and I felt like Brian was extremely calculated with the way that he would approach speeches. He was like very articulate, very like detailed. He'd have a speech written out, and it was very in depth. I was very impressed with it. So he goes to throw him out on the guise of being boisterous and slanderous, and everybody's like, what is going on here? And nobody there at the council, actually everybody at the council kind of knew what I was about at this point, because some of my videos had gone regionally viral at this point. So they kind of knew I was there doing a story. So in my opinion, they should have dotted their I's and crossed their T's a little bit better, but instead they decided to go the other route and make a fool out of themselves. So Mike Reynolds, and it becomes this like internal battle between the council of should we throw him out, should we not? And it becomes this big deal. Well, I record every bit of it, get good angles.
Is that's the one where you was kind of up going from, the speaker to the, okay.
I've done a few like that, but that was the first one where he was wearing that like Christmas jacket.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Everybody had basically seen it. And he ends up not getting thrown out. The video, he was very condescending and, talks about, oh, your little TikTok, blah, blah, blah. And it ends up going viral, So then I start, going viral is a drug. Like, hell yeah. Like getting clicks and views, like, is a drug, right? I mean,
it's validation that you are on the right path. And validation could be in several forms of like, if you want to have a career with it, or if you want people to just pay attention.
Yeah.
So it's a dopamine.
Sure. And so I'm aware of this, that I need to be careful. Like, I don't want to go down the wrong path in this. But
I'm struggling with it.
But I do start really feeling this pull to like exposing a level of corruption in West Virginia. And then like a couple water issues. I'd already been working on a big water project with some of the locals, at this time. We finish out some of those videos, and like some oil spills happen. And basically I start like really like, and I'm starting to get DMs like constantly from people in West Virginia and comments constantly about, thank you for what you're doing. Like, please continue to do what you're doing. Don't stop. And I think the Wild and Wonderful Whites, the Whitakers, Buck Wild, all of these things appeal to the outsiders in West Virginia. I think a lot of people outside of West Virginia love to look at West Virginia and laugh. But I don't get the sentiment that West Virginians love that content. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think there's different sects. There's people that are just embarrassed by it, but I'm knowing how this was put together, I can appreciate it from what I know it is, which is a complete fabrication.
You talking about those videos
of who these people are? Yeah, the Whitakers and the Whites. Like, I can still get appreciation from that.
You can.
Yeah, but not the Whitakers necessarily. That one, I've always had a rule of like, I'm never going to talk about them ever until, all this happened and they got, potentially scammed, and there's a whole thing. But I can appreciate certain things from it, but I also can't imagine what they're going through.
Yeah.
Now that it's out there forever.
I know.
Like I know Jessica pretty much left the state, and like I don't know, like it's been a whole thing. But yeah, so yeah.
So it was a little bit of a green flag that I was getting so many West Virginians go ahead with what I was doing, with what I am doing. I still hold. I don't respond to every comment anymore. For a while, I was deep in the trenches of responding every day, but now I watch everything, and still the overwhelming synopsis, my mentality from people that live in this state is continue to do what you're doing. In fact, let's keep going. Like here's more and more and more.
Sure, yeah.
But I do feel I am at this crossroads. Because like I said, I've already told you what I feel most passionate about, and that is just sitting like Anthony Bourdain and listening. Anthony Bourdain didn't really blow a whistle on a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah, he really didn't. He went to a lot of corrupt countries and didn't talk. I mean, he did talk about some of it, but it was in a very tasteful way
he went into the most red county you could probably go into, and told a respectful, beautiful, empathetic story.
He did.
About all of these, quote unquote Trump voters. He came in and didn't even pay attention to that.
Exactly.
So that's the way it should be. That's storytelling at its purest.
But I do feel there's this overarching. I mean, I can't deny where there's smoke, there's fire as it pertains to corruption in West Virginia and Appalachia in general.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching Christmas in Appalachia. It was an old documentary.
Yep.
You've seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was in Letcher County, Kentucky. And he had mentioned something about grant money making its way to Appalachia, but the people never seeing it. And this was like in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, we're talking 70s, maybe somewhere in that, but it was black and white. So it was a long time ago. And he was just talking about this idea of money making its way to the politicians of West Virginia, but it not actually reaching the people. And it does become very clear to me that West Virginia and Appalachia as a whole is extremely oppressed by a lot of forces. Many of which are outside their control and outsiders and stuff like that, but many of which are inside. And I think these hills protect West Virginians. We've heard that line, the hills protect us, but I think it also keeps things from going out. And I see that a lot. That being said, and I'm going to continue to talk about it because I think it needs to be talked about. And frankly, people love to watch it, and it's fun for me to watch. Like, it was really fun to make that council video. I just really enjoyed it.
See, I wish I had more of that. I'm kind of like, I'm going to think about this for so long, and do I want all this stress?
You're probably smart for it.
No, dude. I want to ask you how you manage all this, but keep going.
Yeah. But I am at this crossroads where I need to be careful. And I will acknowledge this, that I love what I've done so far and I stand by everything that I've done. However, I am at a crossroads where I need to be sure that I don't get obsessed with the clicks and views. And I need to make sure I'm continuing to tell the stories of West Virginia and beyond as they deserve to be told. And I have to remember that even though West Virginians are enjoying this, for the most part, enjoying the corruption being exposed, I do have to remember that there is outside people watching this as well. And I don't want to aid in this narrative of, oh, I'm staying away from West Virginia.
Sure, yeah.
And I had someone reach out to me recently about a story that I'm going to be covering about a pretty bad water issue in a community near a region that has a lot of tourism coming into it. And he had mentioned that this impacts the regions, the soil and water around that region. And I was just like, I told him, I was like, I'm fine talking about the truth. I was like, but I have to be careful. I was like, because I have friends at this point, friends and business owners that make a living in that region. And I am not going to aid in anything that pushes tourism out of that region. Like, I'm not going to give people a reason to say, oh, shoot, I'm not going to West Virginia. I'll go to Kentucky, or I'll go here. I'll go, fuck it, I'm going to Alabama or whatever. Like, I want people to continue to see the beauty of West Virginia. It is a beautiful state, and I want to continue to showcase that. But so I'm at that, like I said, I'm kind of at that crossroads where, like I said, I mean, talking about these topics can be a very slippery slope. And
well, there's a line. There's there's certain things that we can kind of get wrong. We may try not to, but like folklore and all these different things. And that, like, for instance, for me, where I know, like, if I come out about this, I've got to not only have proof, I've got to have proof times 5.
Exactly.
And that's with crimes.
I respect that. Yeah.
So, like, if I call someone out for being a scammer, if I call someone out for, a murder or different things like that.
Yep.
It's a very stressful time, but it helps to know, like, I'm firm in this position.
Right.
People trust me that if I say something, they'll go with it. I got to take that. I can't take that lightly.
No.
And I got to make sure I get it right.
Yeah.
And when I don't get it right, I'll say so.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I operate. But it's the same thing with these infrastructure problems. Like,
but
someone could be telling you something that's completely out of left field. That,
right.
Not saying that it is, but you got to be careful because you may do more harm than good.
Yep. It's complicated. We like to sit on our moral high ground and say, oh, wow, everybody in 2026 should have clean drinking water. And like on paper, I agree with that. And I think everyone would agree with that. But how that fleshes itself out is a very nuanced topic. Like, to zero in on the water issue, I've spent months in the trenches of it. There's a reason I haven't touched things like data centers and stuff like that, because I'm still knee deep in the water issue. And I've realized that everybody in the water issue understands their section of the pie, but very few people understand the broader picture as it pertains to water deficiency in West Virginia.
How we got here.
Yeah. We all kind of know there's aging infrastructure and things like that, but there's like a whole lot of segments inside of it that make up the water problem. I did one of my biggest videos was the mountain with no water. And I told the woman, she reached out to me and I told her, I said, I can't promise anything's going to change from this, but I can promise we will raise awareness. And that was what I told her. And she said, fine. And she's rode with me through it all, even through people scorning her online and,
Oh yeah, that's the thing. You're going to have a percentage. Yep. 1% at that level is a crap ton of people.
Yep. But that's a perfect example of, she lives on top of a mountain, man, and there's 40 families up there. Okay. Do you have I don't think anyone realizes how expensive it would be to get water up there.
Millions. I don't know how many. That's just the question.
And that's like, it's in McDowell County, the poorest county in West Virginia. And like you combine that with many, many, many mountains and many municipalities underneath those mountains that don't have water. Like there's a lot of issues that lead into that. Running a city is like running a business at the end of the day. And a lot of these businesses are underfunded and they don't have the tax base to properly make these decisions. So I acknowledge it is not a clear-cut solution. Fully acknowledge that. Where I do think West Virginia could improve on in terms of a political level and leadership level is just simply addressing these problems head on with a little bit more transparency. I think the governor rarely comments on these issues until it's too late. The Wayne County, as of this video, which is February 5th is when we're filming this, Wayne County still is without water, usable water, due to an oil spill that happened nearby that they're pinning on vandalism. Now, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories about whether it was vandalism or not. I gave the mic to people who claim it could potentially not be otherwise. And I have no I have no qualms about that. I have no problem giving the mic to somebody who wants to make their opinion known. And, and I'm going to, and that's going to be that. But Governor Morsi took 20 days to get out there, and I'm just like, I get it. You're busy, man, but to me, that's a big problem, and I see the priorities in West Virginia as it pertains to the actual problems in West Virginia backwards. The Capitol building's been in session for multiple weeks at this point, and though I'm not following everything about it in any way, shape, or form, I have not been following the daily activities of what they're doing. I only follow the headlines. From what I can tell, they have been more interested in things like putting Bibles in school and prayer back in school and Charlie Kirk Day and banning abortion and some of these topics that are just good political talking points to get votes than they are about actual issues that face West Virginia and stopping the decline of people leaving this state, getting people clean drinking water, communicating to people that if they are in an area where they cannot get clean drinking water, what that would look like. There's just a lack of communication that I see. If a community cannot get clean drinking water, communicate it. Explain to them why this cannot happen. I just don't see that transparency. Like in a lot of my videos, like pertaining to the oil spills, for example, as of late, the Wayne County oil spill and the Wyoming County oil spill, like my videos were the only correspondence that people have received about the topics. And a lot of people have gotten mad at me for not contacting the DEP or the EPA first. And I'm just like, why would the only people that I contact be the people that are paid to give me polished and clean answers that protect liability for them and for their corporations? I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm getting better answers on the field by rubbing shoulders with people that are actually on the field.
Sure.
Than I would be by contacting some of these organizations that are paid to answer it in a certain way.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and to go by like a normal journalistic standard, which I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm an entertainer.
You're a journalist. Don't undershort yourself.
Well, so kind of, I definitely give the other party a chance to say something.
Yep.
Just because I feel like a lot of things could be misconstrued.
Right.
It's not that I'm on anyone's side. It's just obviously I'm on the side of wanting clean water and all these things.
Yeah.
But I want to hear the full story because I think often we look for somewhere to point when we really need 1,000 fingers.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And not only that, it's going to take $1 trillion first to fix everything.
Yep.
It's going to take politicians who communicate, like you said, which to give them the benefit of the doubt, we do see a lot of those headlines, but I do know there's a lot of good people in the legislature that are working towards some good initiatives that they're trying to pass bills on, like on strengthening certain laws or like, they have a missing persons bill that I feel is really important. There's a lot of different things that they're doing, but at the same time, we all can agree that it's not working.
Yeah.
Like it's not working. We're not really acknowledging, like I'm about to raise a couple $100,000, hopefully, to build this bridge in Gary.
Yep.
Because no one put a deed to it.
Right.
It was never on record when the coal company built it way back when.
Yeah.
And now we're here and it's gone. And then everyone essentially just says, well, good luck.
Exactly.
I don't like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's things we could have done decades ago to prepare,
of course,
and to invest in the future. And we're kind of like, we're retiring right now with no money in our 401k is kind of how I feel about it.
It's a perfect way to say it. And it's a perfect way to say it. Like I think everyone like acknowledges there's a problem. As an outsider, I've gotten this feeling that I am okay to talk about issues as long as it's not pointing the fingers towards anyone directly involved today. But the moment that I started pointing fingers towards people involved today, then I started being labeled a troublemaker, being labeled somebody for clicks and views and things like that. I was like, man, nobody had a problem when I was talking about things on a more of a broader level. But now that I'm kind of bringing things into a little more of a accountability aspect, now I'm this person here to exploit for clicks and views. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go down that road of admitting, of believing that about myself. I understand my intentions are pure. That being said, with the amount of eyeballs that are on my content, it is extremely important, and I will acknowledge it is extremely important for me to make sure that I am doing my job correctly and not leaving stones unturned, because I am starting to see how certain things can spiral. So like my Wyoming County oil spill, I had just gone on site to see the oil spill, to see what was going on, to show people where it happened and all of that. Because like I said, nobody's doing that. Absolutely nobody other than a couple independent people like myself are doing that. And I had ended up seeing some people that were working, obviously like contractors or something like that were like dispatched to fix whatever was going on. And I just asked them on camera, like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And they were just, no, we're not talking. And I ended up talking to multiple people like that. We're not talking. And like, it ended up being like this. I posted that video and like a lot of people in the comment section were, oh, these people, make them drink the water, do this, like dox them, do this. Like, it's just like this venom in their bloods. Whereas it's like, okay, I don't agree with the way that those people were just pushing the buck and not giving me any answers. I don't expect these people that work for corporations to be giving me detailed answers as to what's happening, but give me someone that can help. Like, get me in touch with somebody that can assist with this and help answer these questions while I'm on site doing a story. And there was just none of that. And I think it showcased this like that issue. That issue could very well be an absolutely normal occurrence that is being cleaned up in a proper and ethical way.
Is this the one that just happened?
Yeah, in Wyoming County.
Yeah. Now, my buddy Tom Reiser did some good drone footage of that.
I saw.
Yeah.
Appalachian Living?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
And it could very well be something that is just, the coal companies and all of that, they built this, we loved them while they're providing the jobs, and now we hate them now that they're gone, but the truth is, like, we all kind of knew there were some negatives that were going to come from building an entire economy on coal. And if we didn't acknowledge that, then maybe we should have,
Sure. Yeah. It's, we didn't prepare for the transition at all.
Yeah.
It's like, not only that, we're going to double down on, we're just going to be this.
Yeah.
Like, we got rid of so much industry back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, we was glass, timber, sand, all kinds of, like, rock, which we still are in some form. But yeah. And of course, I love coal. I was a coal miner for 9 years, but a typical coal miner will know that it eventually runs out.
Yep.
And it takes millions of years to make.
Exactly.
That alone tells you, like, okay, well, we got to kind of figure stuff out. But they feel like you're attacking their way of life.
Yeah.
And then they get guarded. I think everyone's guarded into their own demise right now.
Me too.
It's like we're just spiraling down all together, giving each other the finger while the plane is crashing.
Yep. Yeah, we do need to call leadership to account, because historically and currently, like you said, it's not working. You know what I'm saying? And I need to figure out that tightrope of what that looks like for me, because I don't want to be someone that people don't want to work with. You know what I'm saying? It's very important for me to walk into places in Boone County and Logan County and some of these places and be somebody that people want to work with. It doesn't mean everybody has to like me. There's always going to be people that don't, but I want the consensus to say Michael's doing a good job.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, sure, he's made his mistakes, or there's things that he could do differently. And I assure you, like, I'm constantly keeping my eyes to what I could how I can, like, sharpen things a little bit. And like I said, if there's one thing I'm deathly concerned about, or deathly scared of, I guess is the best way, is selling out. I think so many content creators, journalists start out great, and then they get a taste of that success, and it's like a drug, man. Like I said.
Sure. Yeah.
And I feel like I got to throttle that back sometimes, of like, all right, let me do a cool down period where I'm just like posting like these, like, but it is just so happened that, like, Parkersburg happened and oil spills happened, and all of this has kind of happened all at once. Like, I am not on this ghost hunt looking for this stuff. Like, this stuff is finding me in a lot of ways.
Oh, everything's breaking, but it's been breaking for years.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned something there earlier about how to get things done. So, like, there's Delegate Roop, shout out. I mean, I don't endorse candidates on here, but there are people that actively care about their community, that are trying to
without a doubt
work towards, and there's Commissioner Green and McDowell. Like, we're all working on this bridge issue, and everyone wants the bridge. It's just figuring out how to fix it. And I think, often we, but a lot, that being said, a lot of them deserve being called out, because that's just how it is. But I personally have went through that recently of, like, we've had such good traction, and we were doing so good and doing well, and we still are. I'm on a hiatus right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, it felt like, you mentioned your old business on a house of cards. It felt like I built Creepalachia kind of on a house of cards, because something came out about the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And I felt like this is what we do. Like, someone could arrest Josie for filming them in the courthouse. Someone could do this or that. And I said, well, let me kind of just get people to pay attention to this, even though they don't need any pay attention. And I overstepped what I want this brand to be, because I had these rules of, like, all right, we're gonna have a firm line of no politics. We're not gonna endorse political candidates. Now, granted, you could say, like, talking about poor infrastructure and all these different things or political. I don't think so. I think that's humanity, and that's acknowledging that we have an issue here.
Yeah.
But a lot of people took that sentence and jumped ship, and it kind of, it hurt me.
Yeah.
It hurt me to all of these things that I've put my soul into this past year. And it's like one post where I decide to kind of say, hey, this is an issue.
Yeah.
Like, I've always said, I don't give a shit who anyone votes for. And I really don't.
Yeah.
I think voting's important. I think you should be educated on your vote. I really don't care who you vote for. Just be able to research, learn, and grow. But this one thing that I feel, now granted, I wouldn't have been in the church. And no, I'm talking about the Don Lemon situation. So basically, Don Lemon and there's another journalist that covered a protest that went inside a church. And I would not have personally done it. I wouldn't have been there. But I don't even like Don Lemon's content, the bad thing. It's just the issue of the First Amendment was put there because of human error, to keep human error from stripping us from this right to cover these things. And that is involved a lot in what you do. And I felt really passionate of like, hey, like I know that this is bad and I wouldn't have done it. But at the same time, we have to realize that they were not breaking any laws. The legal system said they didn't break laws. And it seems like we are trying to arrest people for stories we don't agree with. And I think that is very, very dangerous. And again, I don't like Don Lemon's content. I don't like the fact that they went in there. I feel like the creators and instigators of that protest probably did break the law. And there probably should be some charges with the creators of this. But he was there in a journalistic capacity. And I wish we could figure out how to separate those things. Now, that being said, we lost 5,000 people, but we gained 4,000.
Exactly.
Like, the people who really know me and have listened to all these hours of rambling, they're there like, dude, I don't agree with you, but I love you and I'm here. And I need to look at that instead of the people that could care less what I'm doing in the first place. So that's kind of why I had to take a break.
It's okay to have some conviction about something, but if you want to keep politics out of your brand, I get it. You know, I've had that debate my whole, like for a while now of because for a while there, I was making content outside of West Virginia. You know, I was making establishment reviews, talking about businesses and stuff. I was making, talks where I was basically diving into deep topics. And I kind of just landed on it. Unless something is a massive issue that I feel I need to talk about, I'm just going to let it ride, man.
And I think that's great. And I wish I had, like, I have the 10 toes down thing on a lot of things. And this one, like, I ain't gonna lie. I'll be. You've been so open, and I'll be open too. Like, I broke down that night. I broke down to my wife. And I just said, "Where are all the people I've helped?" Now there were tons of people. If you're listening to this, you were out there, on the front line saying he can have opinions. Like, we love you. There were so many people doing that, but I let it get the better of me to where I was like, questioning why I'm even doing this. Like, I have a comfortable life. I have the best family. And I'm like, if I can't say one post without, and it's basically, hey, I believe in the Constitution. That's basically what it was. But people take it as, you hate Christians. You hate, Republicans. You hate Trump, or fill in the blank. But it was, no, I love this country and I love the Constitution and I love what I do, was basically all it was. And it sucked not having, it sucked that people couldn't separate it. And they were like, you know what? F that guy. He's done all this stuff that I liked, but F him. He said that one thing, Your people, though, stuck by you. Oh, yeah, they did.
And they always do.
They did. And I hate to sound selfish. Like, it was a weak moment for me. I take things to heart, and it really tore me in half to where I was like, I'm about to delete this page. And
no, hell no, we don't need that.
I thankfully I didn't, and I have a plan now. Basically, what it is there, and I want to talk to you about this too. You come to a point where you can't possibly look at all this feedback. You can't do it. I think at that point, which we ain't now, it's probably going to take a dip, but I don't even care. But I think we were over 40,000 comments a month. Like, you can't look at all that. There's no possible way. And you have to kind of decide, like, am I going to look at it at all? Or none?
Right.
And I kind of decided, like, I need a middle person. I still want to be accessible. So I started like a hotline, and there's going to be ways people can get a hold of me. But I'm bringing in a middle person to, like, I'm focusing on content, and they're going to stick to this schedule, and they're going to post everything. That's kind of what we're going to do. But I'm just curious how you navigate that world.
Well, you're bigger than me. You know, for sure. I think you have a bigger brand at this point.
Well, I haven't had the traction you've had. Like, I think your water video, I mean, it's close to what, 80,000 some reactions or something like that. Like, I don't have anything that big.
I have videos, but let me ask you, do you get stopped regularly?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there you go. How often do you get stopped? Like in the store, restaurants, things
since
like that?
we started, it's probably been over 50 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always unbelievably nice.
And is it trending upwards? Like over the last 3 months, have you had more stops than you have?
If I go out in this particular area we're in, it's usually It's to the point of like, because I mean, we call out criminals and people that like we don't know their mental state,
right?
And it got to the point where I was like, you know, this is such a blessing, but at the same time, all of these people that are genuine and kind and like. It wouldn't be that hard to find out where I'm at.
Yeah.
If someone really wanted to, and I just hope, like I'm careful.
Right.
I wouldn't suggest doing that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a little nerve wracking. It kind of, and then your family, like we'll go out to eat and then people will come up and talk and it's always so genuine.
Yep.
But sometimes, you know, it gets the family a little nervous.
You have a bigger local brand than me, without a shadow of a doubt. I think I have a bigger national brand than you. A lot of maybe people watch from outside of West Virginia, and that's why it's even more important that I make sure to continue to represent the state correctly, because I do have a lot of out of state eyes, and I don't want to aid in the perpetuation of the stereotype. You know what I'm saying? I would say this. I mean, I deleted my apps. I don't even have my apps on my phone anymore.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just download them, post, and delete them. I look at my laptop multiple times a day and check my comments on a batching level. I think it's still very important for you to see your feedback and feel kind of what the general consensus is towards your stuff. I think that's what like the lifeblood of a content creator. But look at it in batches on a daily, multiple times a day basis, where you're just kind of reviewing things like you're reviewing a spreadsheet. You know what I'm saying? You're kind of looking at people's general comments throughout the day, But I've learned, like for me, you know, I was in TikTok timeout for a little bit because I called someone, you know, a word. It was a word that, you know, whatever. It was the R word.
Yeah. When was that?
It was right before the Parkersburg thing. Yeah. You know, and I have a sister that's mentally handicapped. We just used that word growing up. It wasn't like this big deal, but I understand that it is an insensitive word now and I shouldn't be using it, you know, but TikTok took that very, very harsh and put me in timeout for a little bit. And I just was like, you know what? I don't need to be blowing up at people like on my platform. It's a bad look. You know what I'm saying? And there was a lot of times early on, you know, where like, not even in the West Virginia, but before that, where like people would love my video, but then they would see my comment section and be like, "Ooh, man, bro, you are like definitely a lot," you know?
Right. Yeah.
And
I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah. And I just needed to separate that. And looking at things on a couple times a day through my laptop made that really easy to do, because I'm usually in a different setting, a different headspace when I'm looking at it on my laptop. I'm like ready to see whatever. I'm not emotionally like charged or anything like that, rather than like if I'm looking at things in the moment all the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's the big thing I would do, but I would not lose sight of your feedback. I think that is your life.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to kind of juggle it. Essentially, my plan is to look at the numbers and the number of certain things. If a video does well, has a lot of reactions and has a lot of comments, it's probably liked. I don't know. But I'm still going to see. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to run into comments. I'm just separating me a little more to make me a little less accessible, because like you said, like I'll sit there and I'll roast a troll for like 4 hours. I'm not even kidding. I will sit there and burn their entire soul to the ground. And that's not good time. No, that's not good time spent. It's not good energy. It doesn't feel good. I mean, I win. Like it's very hard to beat me in a troll debate. Right. But at the same time, I'm arguing with, Ricky Ray from North Carolina, like some random person that I should be dedicating that energy towards the good. You might literally be arguing with a bot. I mean, that's the thing. There may be. Yeah. I typically can tell, like there have been people, like you can blatantly tell when they just AI prompt my response. It's pretty hilarious. But that's the thing, is like, I think it's caused more problems in my life than the contrary, just being accessible there. Yeah. Just get back to the things you love. And that's kind of where I was at. Like, just get back to the things I love. Like, stop getting wrapped up in all this stuff. And
I will continue to expose. I think that journalism will always be a foundation of what I do. I think that's something that I'm good at and something that I feel I need to do. But I do just kind of want to get back to what I love, and like get back to what you love of just creating content and not getting wrapped up in all the, the hate and all that stuff, or even the freaking praise. I mean, praise can go to your head too. I try not to let any of it go to my.
That's the thing, yeah. And then listen, it's probably 99 to 1.
Mm-hmm,
but
same.
it just takes that one that's cuts deep, and you're like, oh, my insecurities, you put them on the table. Now I gotta make you pay. I know. Stuff like that. Yep. And I decided later, I was like, if someone's blatantly just being mean to somebody, I'm just going to ban them.
Right.
And I do.
Yep.
And that was life changing because it was like, I don't have to worry about that. Probably mentally insecure or bought anymore, because there's been times I've called people, I kind of call them out for calling me out. And then they'll go to a level where it's like, they've not only researched me, they're researching my family.
I know. Yep.
And I'm like, oh, this is a different thing.
Right.
And
I had somebody put my personal home in one of the comment sections, and I don't know how they got it.
Yeah.
They put my personal address in the comment sections.
That's terrifying. That's just, it's not. And, but at the same time, we're kind of asking for it, but but to a certain level, no.
Mm-mm.
Like when you cross that line, it's like, hey, now I gotta, because you gotta take that stuff serious. You just don't know.
Right.
Now, granted, could you only imagine if we ever cross that 7-figure follower point? Like, there's a point where you have to check out. But you can still, I think, like you said, you got to be in tune with your audience and know not only what they think, but also, if you're doing a proper job in relaying what you're trying to say. Yeah. Because sometimes stuff gets misconstrued. So,
and I feel like I can take this, man. And I know you feel that. I'm sure you feel that way about yourself, your brand. I feel like I can take this all the way. Like, I really do feel I can take this big time. West Virginia is my first stop, and it's really important to do this state well, because I think I'm learning a lot here. I'm learning a lot about empathy. I'm learning a lot about communication. I'm learning a lot about storytelling. I'm learning a lot about taking an area that is generally, hesitant towards outsiders, earning their trust the correct way, and creating content that represents them properly. And I think those are skills that I can take with me, as we've talked about kind of throughout this entire conversation. These are skills that I can take with me anywhere I go. I don't want to show up to, Africa and not have these skills built. You know what I'm saying? I think there's like, when the stakes are higher, of like a journalistic error of not talking to somebody, that I maybe should have talked to, even though these stakes are still high and they still impact people. I still think they could get a lot higher in terms of like making an error in a foreign country that could get me thrown in jail. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah. That's we still got a lot of good laws here. Yeah. I mean, no matter what you see on the news, we still have, legal protections. Right. A lot of places don't. Right. They just take journalists out and, cut them up in the local, dental office or whatever. I think have you ever ran into, like, I'm curious how you handle in these communities. I know a lot of people don't want to be on camera. Have you ran into people just saying, hey, like, can you not cover this? Or like, I don't want to be on camera. How do you handle those situations?
Most of my best feedback comes off camera. That's when I get people most honest, when they're most talking to me about things, when they're most open about things. I'm most open about corruption. My best DMs have been, hey, I don't want to go on camera. I don't want this to be quoted, but here's my thoughts about X, Y, and Z. And I think it's very important that I protect that. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a level of, I could cross that and just be a bullshit, piece of shit journalist and like throw that on there. But the truth is, I need people to get on record to do what I'm going to do, but I don't need everyone to. And the truth is, I'm not going to force my camera in front of somebody's face that doesn't want to be on camera. Right. Even in Wyoming County, there was a whole long conversation I had with people, a whole truckload of dudes and that were in a truck talking to me about the situation that I didn't record, because I generally don't show up with the camera first and foremost on. I kind of learned that early on in West Virginia, like take a step back, talk to people, that kind of thing. But yeah, I do run into that. And I think there's good reason. Have you ever heard of the story, A Stranger with a Camera in Kentucky?
No.
You haven't? It was like in the 60s or 70s when the war on poverty was happening. And there was a journalist that was working with somebody in Kentucky, and the neighbor came out and shot the journalist.
Oh, I have to look this up.
You have to look up Stranger with a Camera. Yep.
I'm going to make a note. That sounds like it's right up my alley.
Yep. But just in general, man, like I said, it is very important to cover this state well. I don't want to leave this state and be afraid to show my face here again.
Right.
I think there's some journalists or poverty porn people. You know, one of the places that doesn't get talked about much that I think needs to be talked about is Oceana. You ever heard of that?
Oh, yes. Yep. I love Oceana. I lived in Pineville for like 12 years.
Yep.
And that's one that's close to my life. Yes.
For those that don't know, people came to town, Oceana, West Virginia. It's in Wyoming County, and they covered the opioid epidemic in 2009, I think it was, or it was 2013, 14, somewhere in that range. And it was like, they call it a documentary. To me, it was poverty porn to its fullest extent. And they literally just covered pillheads in their act, like literally people doing pills on screen. And I'm in the middle of a project over there. I've shelved it a little bit, but I'm like have an active project over there of showing kind of the juxtaposition of like what the real Oceana is, which is nothing like the freaking documentary says it is. Sure. And this guy went into people that were doing good work in the community and spent 3 days with them, tore their place up, videoed them, interviewed them, and he didn't include a single clip of that in the documentary.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't want to be that way, man. I don't want to be afraid to get back in this state because people hate me when I'm done, and that's it. I mean, that's really where I'm at. And I do think, go ahead, brother.
No, you go ahead.
I think it's important for people to understand who I am and what I'm about. And the reason I wanted to give kind of all the context is because, I like to get ahead of things. And if I get big enough, all these things are going to come out anyway. And they've already been out. I've already addressed them in a lot of ways, but I haven't addressed them to modern day audience that watches my stuff now. So I think a lot of people are going to hear my real estate career and be, wow, okay, I didn't know any of that about them. I hope people will just look at it as what it was and not, I'm sure there's going to be some people that are like, this guy, but I think most people will be like, we all make mistakes and move on.
Generally people do that. They appreciate honesty way more than anything else. And it's not like, and we all make mistakes. Let's be real. We have times where if it was our worst part of our life on camera, we'd be mortified, So, but people generally are just very kind and accepting.
People have gone on my app out a Starbucks cup in my videos and stuff like that. And I need people to understand what I'm about. I am here to build up. I am traveling full time. I've put my house up for rent. I camp in my vehicle every night. I do this. I've literally like my life is literally this. And I think people need to understand that I am not a philanthropist. I have every intention of making money off this eventually. I'm not making money on it currently, not even close to enough to cover my expenses, but I do hope to flip those tides eventually and make some money. I've been doing content for 4 years. I mean, if I actually have all the expenses and income tallied up, I'm very much in the red as it pertains to just content. That being said, I love what I do and I'm perfectly happy with that exchange. I have my real estate career that is funding my ability to do this. And if I never make it to the green, so be it. I will continue to do this and love it, but I'm not against making money. And I think people need to understand that. And I think people need to understand just because I have covered issues like water deficiencies and some things like that I think people automatically assume I'm anti-corporations and I'm anti-capitalism and I'm anti a lot of this stuff. And people need to understand that I'm here to build a brand. I feel like you can do that successfully while representing people correctly. And I just feel like if I build my brand off the backs of representing people correctly and bringing exposure to things that need to be exposed and giving a voice to people that have never had a voice, then I feel like that is a good exchange that nobody should have any issues with.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work, man.
Yes.
Golly.
It's nonstop work.
Nonstop.
Yep. And that's just that. I mean, I've got my intentions called out often lately, not a ton, but by a loud minority. And I think it's important for people to understand what I'm about very clearly, who I am and what I'm about.
Well, the immersion is something that I will never be able to do of like, that's dedicated. I mean, and you're going to grow, you're going to get there. It's just according to what's the clock?
Yeah.
How long is it going to take? Because, you have the drive to do it. You got the skill set to do it now. You're doing good work, and you're figuring out like a template on going into these communities. So you're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, the big thing is keeping that drive, and that's what I've been kind of working on. Like, and I don't, I need to do more on site stuff, but it's just hard for me to travel. I'm such a hermit. I'm such a, it's just my thing is like, well, I'll tell some stories here, and before I know it, the week's over.
I know.
You know,
you do good work, man. We all have our lane, and I think you're going to continue to grow. I think you have that good kind of that. People love your content, man. It doesn't always have to be fucking controversial, it can just be feel good and people enjoy it, and you show off the beauty of West Virginia.
Sometimes I just like telling a story about, the Mothman, and we do a lot of that stuff. But there's place for everybody, and we'll see. Like when I fire back up, I think actually when the day this releases is my first day of back.
Which day is this releasing?
The 16th
of February.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's actually. I think like we're back now, but hey, here's the story of the hiatus. So y'all know, but, we'll see where it goes. I kind of want to be like, I don't want to miss my daughter growing up.
I know. Yeah.
She's going to be 12 this year.
Yeah.
It's just, these years are melting away. And
I know. Yeah.
What am I working towards? I'm already here.
Right.
Let's just do good work and, work our way through it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of,
and I'm in a different boat. I don't have a wife, I don't have a girlfriend, I don't have, I have parents. I got family that I love, but they are completely supportive of my life and my ability to just go. And I have a career that I own, so I can speak about things in a little level that other people cannot.
Sure.
So it gives me that's why I feel I can bring this full circle and I can bring this to the nth degree. That being said, like you said, what is the clock? I can either cut corners, become a clickbait artist, and there's nothing wrong with clicks and views. We always use that in a naturally negative tone.
You got to have a balance.
Yeah, like clicks and views in and of itself are not wrong. Sacrificing your morals and your convictions for clicks and views is what's wrong.
Blatantly lying.
Yeah, so we have to be clear what that distinction is. And I'll be honest, like I said, I'm on that tightrope where I'm trying to figure that out, what that looks like for me. But what people do not need to be concerned about is my trying to exploit West Virginia or selling out or anything of that nature. I am still the same person I was 6 months ago. I'm just trying to figure this thing out a little bit more. I mean, that's really where I'm at.
Yeah, man. And I mentioned like, okay, I kind of crossed the line with that post, but I don't regret the post at all. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I'll always stand behind those beliefs, but I do recognize that the bridge I'm trying to build, that doesn't reside on it.
Yeah.
It'll always be there. It's part of the history of it, but I'm just gonna do what I love to do, and I'm gonna try and keep bridging that gap for people to love it, no matter who they voted for, and then we'll just see where it goes, And if people like it, great. If not, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I didn't sacrifice. I'm not, I'm thankful to have a family that loves me, and we're comfortable, and I just want to show off my home. So I love what you're doing, and
I appreciate that. It means a lot,
Yeah, man. I think it's very needed.
And if someone has an issue with what I do and you like have a genuine concern, I had a good friend text me recently after that Wyoming County video, and he's a very corporate guy. So he sees things from a little bit of a different perspective. He's in the northern part of the state and is very corporate. And he just candidly was like, I feel like, we had a candid conversation where he felt he expressed some concerns, I feel like maybe he came at it a little more kind of little more gloom and doom than I feel like needed it. But I do feel like where we ended was like the truth, which was like, I do mean well for this state. And I do want to continue to work closely with, the groups of people that feel unheard, but also the groups of people that are like, highly college educated and are in the trenches that are doing, good work as well. I mean, he made a good point. The entire DP is not corrupt.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No. The only thing I have against the DP is my whole dad worked there for a long time. He don't know more, but other than that, like, I'll be honest, I'm not versed on this stuff.
Yeah.
So if I come out and talk about something, I can't do it unless I know what I'm talking about, if that makes sense. Or if someone comes in here and says a bunch of stuff, I have to have someone who is here that can counter.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I'm hearing, if that makes sense.
And I need to be probably a little bit better about that of, I think what the change that happened with me was when I started giving the mic to other people.
Sure.
And like I said, before that, I could carefully curate every single narrative and everything in a proper and contained manner. And now it's allowed people to have a voice. And, everything that everyone says in my videos, I don't fully back 100%, but I do feel this is their opinion. Mm-hmm. And unless it's some like outrageous thing that's like going to harm people, I kind of just let it ride, and I clip out a lot of stuff where I'm like, nah, this isn't going to help the cause. Like I really do edit it around it.
Sure.
But I need to be careful. And I need to remember that, these videos have real consequences for real people. And I just need to make sure I'm following this thing correctly.
What a blessing for that reach, though. It's like, what a blessing to be able to bestow this, someone's voice.
I know.
Like you mentioned about given the voiceless a voice. That's a big thing we do. Like, and I'll do that too. People will come in here and tell me about a person that's missing, and I give them all the leeway in the world. I don't care if like, of course, I hope that everything's factually correct, but if they say, all I say is just don't bring up names, talk about your frustrations. But at the same time, have you watched Channel 5?
A little bit. That's how I found the snake handling church.
Dude, Channel 5.
Yeah, a little bit. I try not to watch too much.
Well, they do like Andrew Callahan, the way he does journalism and he does a lot of politics and a lot of different stuff. I really love that channel because he has both sides and he allows them to talk.
Yeah.
And he doesn't make fun of people. If you laugh at someone, it's because they deserve it.
Right.
It's just the way he does it is very, very good. And I see a lot of that.
I saw 15 minutes of what he did in that. Did you see a snake handling church one?
That one I messaged and I said, I wish I knew you came because I'd have loved to.
Yeah.
But it was.
I heard he did a decent job.
He did good. Yeah. He did a lot better than. Which I haven't really seen a negative snake handling church
there are
piece.
A lot of them.
I haven't.
Did you see mine?
Sought out. Yeah. I watched your video.
There's a lot of negative towards those guys.
Yeah.
It usually comes from people within, like Christians.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about Andrew Callahan's religious beliefs, but I'm an atheist, so
he's agnostic like me, kind of.
I kind of just looked at it, and because of how I grew up, I kind of knew what to expect. They were really pretty much like my church growing up, just one step more, and they've picked up snakes. I mean, that was really the difference. So I wasn't like that amazed by it. Now, Granted, when the motherfucker picked up the serpent and like there is this adrenaline rush of like, it is right in front of me, man. That thing can lash out and bite me. But that was a really good experience for me. I took 8 weeks in that church and really just like did the Anthony Bourdain, listened, like felt and like learned the vibe of these people. But yeah, I mean,
you think you get the preacher to come here?
Absolutely.
I would. I've been wanting to. I saw his soft white underbelly, which Mark Lyda, a lot of his work I disagree with, but a lot of it I really like. And that interview I saw, he went down there and done.
100%. I can get him here.
I'd love for it because I do a lot of snake handling stories and really just trying to understand.
I think it would be incredible for people to understand.
Yeah.
These people. I landed. I said, listen, this obviously isn't for me. I'm never going to pick up a serpent. But honestly, I have more respect for them than I do for people that are lukewarm Christians, is what we called them back in the day. People that are Christian by name only and don't actually, their faith doesn't cost them anything. Because the truth is, following Christ has always come with a cost. If you look historically in the Bible, the 12 disciples, all but one of them died a horrific death. Some sort of martyrdom or something of that nature. The only person that didn't was John. He died of old age, exiled to an island. The rest of them died, and their faith cost them something very serious, their life in horrific manners. And I really did respect their ability to just, this isn't about money. This isn't about making money, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind this story. He said when Mark was there that he had asked him to pick up the serpent and take a picture with it during that interview that Mark did with him, soft white underbelly. And according to Chris said, no, I don't want, I'm not picking up the serpent unless the Lord leads me to.
Sure.
And Mark had mentioned, I'll pay you a little bit more if you do it. I'll pay you this if you don't, but I'll pay you this if you do. And he said, now, again, this is according to Chris, the preacher. And Mark said, well, will you at least hold your hands in a certain way so that I can Photoshop it? He said, yeah, I can do that. So if you look at that interview,
really, it's Photoshop.
According to the preacher, if you look at that interview when he's holding the serpent, it is literally a Photoshop.
Well, see, that makes sense because you're kind of making a mockery of it, like taking a photo of it. But that's the thing. And listen, we've paid people for interviews.
Yeah.
I don't pay for like true crime stuff and but if someone's like going to drop 5 hours from Shepherdstown to tell me about their job, they need gas money. So that's the only thing is he incentivizes addicts mid addiction, which to me, you're incentivizing to hear depravity.
You talking about soft white underbelly?
Yes. So that's the only thing. Now, to each their own on how they do things, but yeah, like I said, I think Mark overall is a really good creative.
I feel like he may have met well with the Whitaker, story. For those that obviously aren't aware, like he was the first one to cover the Whitakers, I believe, right?
He was, yeah. There's a whole backstory.
Yeah,
actually, a Raleigh County cop took him to where they lived.
Got it.
And he was doing photos, and he did this book called Created Equal.
Okay.
And it kind of had juxtapositions of like he would take a photo of a pimp and then a photo of like a polygamist, and he put them together.
Makes sense.
And then so that's when he first met them. And then later on, he decided like, well, let me take some video for some people back home. And it was that first cell phone video that's got like 49 million views now.
52 million I last.
Yeah.
And I felt like he went too far with it.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%.
Do we really need the I will argue we didn't need the original.
We didn't need it ever.
Yeah, but I would say, did we really need the Whitakers go to Walmart, the Whitakers go to the fair? You know what I'm saying?
And he got on Rogan and before all that, the series, because there's like 16 videos in the playlist now.
Okay.
And before all that, he said he's not going to turn them into a sideshow. And then he did all these, go to Walmart, State Fair, all these different things. And the thing with that, like, I do not feel that this family was they never had the representation to realize what was going to happen.
Absolutely.
To know they were just doing this because some guy came, he's pretty nice. He said he'd get me groceries.
Yep.
And that has opened them up to such darkness and pain. Right. And of course, there's a lot of people that like him, but majority of people are just really, really insensitive and mean.
Yeah. But that's Oceana as well, going back to that.
Yes.
I mean, I've talked to locals in depth about it, and they are judged constantly by that video, and where is that line of awareness? I would argue we don't need to, if you are like that unaware that people live in poverty in this country, I don't know why your head's in the sand. Like, we all know that there is extreme poverty in this country. There's still people using outhouses in this state. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is a problem. Do we need to put that on blast for everyone to see? I would argue they don't have the ability to consent. You can say yes, but if that person isn't in their right minds, which frankly, I don't think they were in the right minds.
Watch this case as it unfolds. One of the people that I believe are a scammer, I think they both are, but Patrick Rourke got charged. Watch how this case changes how people approach West Virginia, because I firmly believe if he gets these 11 felonies, it's going to change the way people navigate these stories.
What do you think it's going to change?
I think that it's going to make people realize that, for one, all of these, the contract is the thing. There's 5 counts of exploiting an elderly or incapacitated adult. And basically what I believe that is, we'll see how it unfolds. What I believe that was putting someone who did not have the ability to be coherent enough to know what they were signing into a legal agreement. I believe, in the future, all releases are going to be illegal. I think that literally you got to be able to prove that someone's coherent enough to know, and that would be either they have legal representation or someone with power of attorney that's making sound decisions for them. Yeah. And that would mean, there's been big YouTubers to remove their videos already, like millions of followers.
For Whitakers?
Since this has happened. Now, I don't know if it was tied to this, But like, I think now, granted, the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yeah.
You Google inbred family, you're going to see 10,000 search results of this family. I couldn't imagine what that would be like. But I think it's going to be like, kudos to Raleigh County for stepping up and doing this, because it's opening up a lot of flack for them and a lot of important questions that I think we need to be asking ourselves. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe he'll get not guilty, whatever. I mean, my opinion, I believe that they were for sure exploited. And, it was disgusting, but it is what it is.
Do you know Banksy?
Oh, yeah.
You do? Did you see his Eastern Kentucky one recently?
No.
Yeah, he went out to Eastern Kentucky, made a mockery out of that place.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he went to Harlan, talked to the town drunk, put him as a thumbnail. And I haven't talked to people extensively in Eastern Kentucky about it, but they're not happy about this.
I didn't think Banksy came out.
You should see it.
Does he do like distorted voice or something?
I don't know.
Are you talking about the street artist?
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Not Banksy.
I was going to say Banksy. I love Banksy. He does all this street art. And no one really knows who he is.
His name is B something. It's this journalist.
There's been a couple of jackasses come in.
I can't remember. Man, Banksy is it's something like that. But there's a gentleman that came out to Eastern Kentucky recently, and
I'll have to find it.
Put Harlan County on blast. But it's funny because I've started dipping my toe into Eastern Kentucky, and I say West Virginia was not my first stop. It was my only stop. It's my first stop in a long journey. And as much as I love West Virginia and the people of the state have really rallied around me, it's time to start branching out. And this is becoming a little bit more of an Appalachia tour, if I'm being honest. So I felt like the next, rather than a hard cutoff, I'm done in West Virginia. I'm moving on to the next place. Since I feel West Virginia is going to continue to be a place that I need to continue to cover, I'd rather just start expanding. So I've started expanding into Eastern Kentucky. And it's funny because people have asked me like, oh, this is a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem. And it sounds like a lot of the same storylines that I'm running into in West Virginia are becoming in Eastern Kentucky. Yeah. But I tell them I'm starting slow. I'm going to immerse myself just like I did in West Virginia. I'm going to treat Eastern Kentucky, even though I can see West Virginia across the border, like I'm going to treat it like a new region that I know nothing about. And the last thing I'm going to do is start going into Eastern Kentucky and, filming council meetings and blowing the whistle on things that I'm not 100% sure on.
Is it Boyd County or like?
Boyd County.
Yeah, that's where I was born.
It was nice.
I was born in Ashland.
My first video was in Ashland. Yep, exactly. Beautiful city.
I lived on Boy Scout Road for I don't know how many years. I moved here in 5th grade. Well, yeah, that's we're kind of in the same transition as like Creepalachia is all of Appalachia. Obviously, we're mainly West Virginia right now. So I've been like, okay, well, let's go to the edge of each state and let's add in little stories here and there and kind of creep out. So I'm kind of doing the same thing.
Eastern Kentucky is going to be an interesting region. I'm kind of, I use West Virginia as my kind of comparison, but I do feel Eastern Kentucky is going to be its own beast. I'm just excited about it. I think Appalachia is a very underserved region, and it's about time it gets represented correctly.
You had people talk about like Queen Amanda, the big steel, where they had this. I think it was like the second largest oven where they would forge steel in like Kentucky? America. Yeah, it was. They blew it up.
Interesting.
They called it Queen Amanda. It was demolished in I think 2022.
Interesting. Nope.
There's pictures out there of like people, like old people, like watching it and crying while it's being like blew up.
Wow.
But yeah, it's and it's cold too, but it's blue collar for sure. But I'm interested to watch you do that. Yeah, so how do we tell people like, I think we covered it all. Did we miss anything?
I don't think so, man. And I really appreciate you having me on. Yeah. I feel like, you can only show so much of somebody in 3 minutes, and I feel like this long form, it's going to be an investment. What are we at? About 3.5 hours?
3.5. Yeah. Second largest. Well, I think it's the second longest one we've done at 140.
I think it was very important. And I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to, number one, make amends with you. I really appreciate that. Apologies for kind of being a bull in a china shop.
Apologies for me too. Yeah. Yes. Public apologies.
But, but beyond that, give me the opportunity to rehash my story. I don't talk about it much. And it's funny. I created a whole series about a lot of my story. It was like how I really learned to storytell in the beginning, but I didn't really think about a lot of this stuff, often.
It's very cathartic.
It is
every now and then.
And I really appreciate you kind of giving me the opportunity to go on record with some of this stuff and make my opinion completely clear on a lot of these issues that could potentially be controversial. And I just want to thank you, man, and just West Virginia in general for continuing to shower me with support. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the reason I've stayed so long. So I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, I believe you get the West Virginia card anytime after this. We'll see.
We're going to keep it going.
We'll see if we can get some good things to happen. And, you know, if anything, people have been talking more. So that's definitely a start. Where can people find you? You know, what all platforms you on, all that good stuff.
Everything's short form right now. I always say I'm kind of a YouTuber for the short form world. You know, maybe one day I'll branch into YouTube, but I'm just not there yet. I felt like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook needed a little bit of a niche in terms of high content or high what do you call it, like deep content for the short form world and a brain rot world. So you can find me on TikTok and Instagram under Bowman TV. That's B as in boy, OWMAN TV, short for television. And then Facebook, Michael Bowman.
Heck yeah. I'll definitely put it in the description.
Yep.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. I'll kind of
appreciate you. Can I do a video with you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't care.
People have asked me about you. They want to know kind of the real you behind the camera.
You got any questions? Any questions people of that? I mean, I'm kind of an open book. Like I've got on here, I've told, there isn't much I haven't told on the show, but no one's going to sit around and listen to me ramble for all that time.
We can get you out. We can figure something out, but I'd love to do a video with you eventually, kind of, because I got to remember there are good people in this state doing good work, and I need to make sure I continue to showcase that. And I think you're one of those people.
Yeah, man. Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely collab.
All right, brother.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you, dude.
Everyone out there, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Creepalachia on YouTube if you haven't. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, take a minute and leave a review. That'll really help the show be found. We are on Patreon now. I do exclusive fictional stories over there. If you like ghost stories, I'm over there. And if not, be sure to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all those good places. And everyone else, please remember, above all else, long live Appalachia.